to introduce Melanated Glow. Give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. If we don't know our true story, then we're bound to repeat it, making mistakes that leave us defeated. Our ancient traditions receded, our culture depleted, resulting in the adoption of lies where truth is needed. Brother Hassan told us we're more African than we think. We're the link from the ancestors to this dimension, through the kinks in our hair and to the souls that listen. Knowing the things of the past up to today aren't that much different. I mean, the change in DNA isn't statistically significant. Hidden Colors taught us that half of what we seek to accomplish comes from what we know about our people. It's easier to learn and create with known trace of a thinker. The established members of society that descended from the creators of the Sphinx are reach as infinite as we encompass Nita. All is connected as the slave patrols are now current day's police. The field has become big business entities. Master the CEO, kinfolk the employees, the overseers the manager, and branding now social security. Securing us socially, using a string of numbers to identify us individually, tracking our lives if we're their equity, like we're their property, like our story started with slavery, instead of the life that originated on the banks of the Nile, like we didn't create civilizations in every man, woman, and child, all the while knowing we are the wisdom dispensation that covers the entire globe. We are the wisdom dispensation that activates our frontal lobe, the often imitated but never duplicated story told. We are the source of energy that of every observation stole. We are worth more than gold in the spiritual component of the universal code. The descendants of the prisoners of war captured so we can show the world our abilities and be a hidden part of their history and writers of our own story. Because if we don't emancipate our minds, our bodies will never be free. A quote from the Honorable Marcus Garvey, the force behind RBG and true African unity rooted in integrity. With physical slavery, we never cease fighting back. We counteract the vicious attacks. With whip marks on our backs, we refuse to be property of blacks. Seeking freedom kept us attached and attacked. So we revolted and led all kinds of revolutions worldwide, embodying Shango and Oya with the ancestral pride. No divide, just unification, a collective stride towards liberation. The opposing side met with devastation. Even our own kind chose, eliminated deliberation. Deliberate for what when your true colors are so vibrant that they decided to neglect their self-best interest for a tyrant? We're using our drums for sirens, signaling the tribe that the revolution has re-begun, following a recipe that has already won, connected as Ayiti's daughters and sons. African warrior scholars to the battle line with physical strength, spiritual awareness, and a unified tribe of a sound mind, authenticating the energy that has been brought in the midst. When we sense deception, we eliminate the tricks, the laws, acts, amendments, and Memorandum 46. They attempted to hide our story so we'll be lost in what to do. Their lives are being exposed to receive their just due. Our stories are being uncovered because you can't forever hide the truth. Hope you got that one, part one. Time for that, Brother Hassan, part two.
I'd like to welcome my good brother, Brother Hassan. He needs no introduction.
Can everybody hear me out there? All right. Melanated Glow, I got scariness coming out of them hills, girl. I had to make sure you ain't fall. I was like, hold on, make sure she don't fall right quick. Save my sister. All right, we here this evening, part two of the hidden history of Haiti. If you don't like it, blame Patrick, Khalid, and Kenny. Y'all can fight them outside when we done, because they contracted me to do this. All right, so first and foremost, who would be the oldest in the room? We got any 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds? Over 50. Do I have permission to speak, Elder? Thank you, thank you. In African culture, you must ask the elder to speak because the most important thing to be is a teacher. And I don't want to be up here teaching foolishness, so I have to ask the elder for permission to speak before I get up here and feed my information to y'all. All right, that's a part of African culture. First and foremost, I thank our Caroline Educational Center for hosting us here. Highly appreciated. Obviously, Pat, Kenny, and Khalid for putting this together. Melanated Glow for coming up here and blessing the stage and rocking them heels. Appreciate that. Everyone who purchased a ticket online, and y'all for being here. Again, as my brother said, this could not be done if y'all were not here. There is no Brother Hassan if there aren't people who out there who support Brother Hassan or purchase the tickets or share the memes or whatever you do. So Ubuntu is the philosophy of the African, of our African culture. And Ubuntu means I am because you are. There is no me without you. There is no lecture without the people. So one of the things that we always get confused is we get egocentric about ourselves. We feel like I'm the stuff, I'm the man, I'm this and I'm that, but you are nothing without the people that support you. So I want to thank y'all for being here today. And I also want to take the time to thank a very special person, Shay. This young lady here has been to almost every lecture I've ever did. So I want to take the time to give her some flowers and appreciate her. Thank you, sister. This sister has flown to Florida twice and to Atlanta to support. And so people like her are very, very important, and we appreciate that. All right, so y'all know I got to make sure my checklist is good. Okay, Patrick already talked about not filming because we're going to be obviously selling this. All right, so hidden history of Haiti Part 2. So first and foremost, this is dedicated to our African Haitian people who try to make it to America and died at sea. And this goes back to the 60s, where you had Haitians trying to get here to America for a better life. And I think if somebody could pass a paper around, I want to take everybody's information now because I think we need a statue to commemorate that. We need a statue to honor the people who died, not only coming from the transatlantic slave trade, but also the people who died trying to get to America for a better life. And I think if our children know what our parents had to go through to get here, we would appreciate why we're here more. You get what I'm saying? So we definitely need to honor that. Melanie, if you could do that, pass the paper around so we could take phone numbers and things. So we definitely can push for the city council, whoever we have to push to get a statue made for our people. Also, this is dedicated to Eveline Sincere, the sister who was murdered in Haiti. That's my sister. My sister's in the crowd right now. That's my sister. That's your auntie. That's your mother, right? But I can reassure you that by the end of this lecture, I can show you that her situation was a larger problem. And so we want to honor the women and the men who lost their lives senselessly because of the system that we live in. Also, as my brother Pat said, my brother Tony, who was just here with us at the last lecture. This brother was very influential in, just whatever he was doing. He always kept a smile on his face. He was an organizer. He did things behind the scenes, never wanted attention for doing it. And that brother will surely be missed, man. So this is for Brother Tony. All right? And you can see Brother Tony right here at the last lecture. Every time he would write some notes, I knew I was smoking. I knew I was on to something. Whenever he would put his head down and I said, yeah, I'm dropping some good stuff, huh? You know what I'm saying? He was right there, always supportive, man. The last comment he left me too was 500 slides. Because I was going to come up here and try to do 500 slides. And Khalid always be getting on me. Khalid be like, yo, man, let's be too long, man. Make it shorter, man. Make it shorter. But one thing that the brother said that really stuck with me, and I'm trying not to get emotional, one thing he said to me is, man, do that 500 slides because you never know what's going to be your last lecture. And that brother's not here today. And so I don't want to get too emotional about that, but moving forward. So we're going to pour libations for the ancestors because we would not be here without our ancestors because we are our ancestors. Our ancestors live within us. Everything we do is for our ancestors. So as it goes, I'm going to pour libations, and y'all going to say a historical ancestor or one from your bloodline. So it could be historical, it could be Marcus Garvey, whoever you want. So we're going to go ahead and pour the libations, and afterwards you say Ashe. All right? So I'm going to start with my auntie, my grandmother and Tony. Tian, Wavem, Tony, you with us. Ashe. Go ahead, just scream it out. Ashe. 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 Elijah Muhammad, Ashe. Ashe. Dr. Amos Wilson, Ashe. Dr. Francis Cresswell sing Ashe. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. All right. Now I'm going to need some libations because I'm about to go up here and go. All right. All right, so I'm going to need everybody to channel their energy. This lecture might make you upset. It might make you laugh. It might make you big mad. It might make you mad when you at a 10. But channel that energy. However you feel. If it make you happy, if it's feel-good information, use it in some type of way. Better your community, whatever the case may be. If it make you upset, use that too. Go out there and use that, right? So I'm going to have these notes up here. Please don't let me forget my notes, because if I forget my notes, I'm going to be rambling all along up here. So if y'all see a note that I didn't mention, please be like, Brother Hassan, you forgot that note. So I understand that we are all on different levels of consciousness, and the purpose of this lecture is to put us on sort of the same level of consciousness, right? Because one of the biggest misconceptions we think is that we see with our eyes, but we don't see with our eyes. We actually see with our brain. Our brain is what actually sees. Your eyes are just the vehicle used for your brain to identify something, right? And so with that being said, I understand that we all have had different upbringings. We've been introduced to different information. So if it makes you upset, again, use it to better your community. But I understand that we all have different levels of upbringing. So I'm trying to get everybody on the same page with that, all right? Moving forward. All right. Special reminder, Khalid would not let me forget it. Every morning he called me, brother, don't forget, January 1st coming up, January 1st coming up. I said, I got it, brother. I'm going to put it in the lecture. So special reminder, January 1st is an African holiday. Now, we like to look at it as a Haitian holiday, but it is an African holiday for African people, okay? Because when Haiti became independent, all other African countries began to become independent behind it, right? And so there's a lot of African philosophies that I'm going to tie into that. So January 1st is not just a holiday for Haitians, it's a holiday for all Africans. The importance of soup jumeau. So a cultural dish reflects the history and values and psychology of a people. We don't necessarily tie our food into our history, but our food 100% goes into our history. It's a part of who we are, right? This soup right here is called independence soup, and it's basically tied to the Haitian history, to the African Haitian history, because that's the soup that we eat to celebrate our independence. And so when you look at other cultures, you see that they have, like, let's say, for example, in Spanish culture, they have moros de cristianos, which means Moors versus Christians, right? That's a part of Latin Spanish history, right? So your food 100% reflects your history. Okay, Ubuntu doing it after the revolution. So again, talking about Ubuntu, the African philosophy with I am because you are. One of the things that Haitians did, African Haitians did, is they ran around the world helping free other African people, right? That's very key to our psychology as African people. Haiti just keyed in on it and made it something, a part of their motto, right? So like, for example, I'll give you an example. Alexander Dumas, right? This brother wrote the Three Musketeers. His father is General Alexander Dumas, right? He fought with Napoleon against the Haitians in the Haitian Revolution. His job was to go, and you can see he's a brother, his job was to go in and put down those revolutionary leaders, but he couldn't beat them. He never could beat Toussaint, Dessalines, and all the rest of the revolutionaries, right? So he failed. His son became a famous writer, and the book that he wrote was The Three Musketeers. Now, what is the Three Musketeers motto? All for one, and one for all, right? So look, that's the three revolutionaries right there. Dessalines, Henry Christophe, and Toussaint. You see that? Okay, so Ubuntu in the Haitian culture, right? Everybody should know that on the flag it says, Union fait la force, which means together we are a strength, right? Even in Haitian culture, in the verbiage, we call each other se and fouet, which means brother and sister, right? So we have that connection, right? When we make the soup jumeau, one of the things that you would see Haitians make it in big pots because it's designed to share with the whole community. Everything about our artwork, from the way we speak and the way we think, is brotherly and sisterly. Is about brotherly and sisterly. Even in our paintings, you see we always together, we always working, right? All right, so in case you missed it, keep calm and let's recap. We're going to go over the first part of the lecture for those who weren't there, but I see a whole bunch of pretty lovely faces inside, so I know that most of y'all were here for the last one. All right. History is you, and you are history. History is not designed to teach you that we were kings and queens, but to show you how we fell from being kings and queens. So one of the issues that I see in the community is that we constantly talk about how we were kings and queens and et cetera, but we never study how we fell from being kings and queens. And that's the most important part of history. If you're just studying history to feel good, you're studying history for all the wrong reasons. You're supposed to study history to see how did we get to this point where we're in North America, we're speaking English, and we have the religions that we have. That's why you study history, not just to feel good about yourself. Okay. One of the things I constantly hear is slavery was back then, right? We're somehow different from our ancestors. But if you look at the food that we eat, that's the food that our ancestors ate during slavery, right? You look at our clothing. Oh, we love a three-piece suit. You know how many people look at me crazy now with my African garments? And they look at me like, bro, you look weird. How do I look weird in something that's custom to me, right? Our surnames, our last names. I know a lot of Baptistes, a lot of Jean Pauls, a lot of Williams. I mean, we're not from England, we're not from France, but we have those last names. The languages that we speak, right? And last but not least, don't throw rocks at me, our religion. Because I know we get very, very touchy about our religion. But our religions, no matter if it's Islam or it's Christianity, has its roots in slavery or some form of oppression of African people. All right, so the Moors being exiled out of Europe after 700 years. Obviously, as the beautiful children said earlier, our young African children, and please support these young children, because we can't say that, we can't look at our children later on when they sell drugs to us and they're out there committing crimes and we're not supporting them to not do those type of things. So it's an effort, it's a community effort that we save these children before they become a problem in our, and not saying these children, but we save our children before they become a problem. Like they shouldn't be just focused on basketball, singing and dancing. They should be entrepreneurs. So support these young African children. But as they said earlier, the Moors went in and civilized Europe because they were going through the Dark Ages, taught them how to bathe and how to eat their food in courses and things like that. And then obviously they began to exile the Moors out. In North Africa at this time, you have the Arab slave trade going on in Eastern Africa and in Northern Africa as well. This is why you have mostly Arabs in Northern Africa to this day, because of the slave trade that was taking place for so many years. Excuse me. Now, a lot of the people who were actually involved in the slave trade were mixed race Arabs. So they were Africans and Arabs mixed together. Like you have this brother here, Tipperton. He was one of the biggest slave traders in Eastern Africa, right? We're going to talk about that a little more, the mulatto problem. But this is something that was taking place. You had mixed race Arabs. You had black and Arabs, and then they became the biggest slave traders. In West Africa, you have the same thing. You have the Signeri community in West Africa. They were also mixed race people. They were mixed race people who was highly involved in the slave trade. This is something that a lot of our elders talk about, the so-called mulatto problem, but we'll get into that a little later. Okay? The Moors put religion before race, cultural assimilation. That's one of the biggest problems that we face to this day and even back then, putting our religious faiths before our race. And so a lot of the Moors were involved in the slave trade as well because they put Islam before being black. To this day, you go to Africa right now, you got, what are these brothers called? The terrorist group called Boko Haram, killing other Africans in the name of Islam. We have that problem, and we have to be honest about that. So then and now, it's the same thing. Okay, black Christians do the same thing. You can't tell a black Christian, next slide. I ain't trying to get dragged off the stage. I'm not trying to get dragged off the stage. All right, Africans had slaves too. That's another myth that we hear from European scholars and people who haven't studied history. The difference between our form of servitude and their form of slavery is two different things. It's not the same. And when people say that, it kind of perpetuates the idea of white supremacy that, oh, well, we did it to each other, so they should do it to us. And that's not the case. I would go deeper to that, but Africans did not have a form of slavery the way that Europeans did. All right, also the resistance to African slavery by Africans. You never hear this part in history, how we resisted slavery. And just for example, you talk about Queen Nzinga, right? She was, Nigeria. I think she was a queen in Nigeria, in what we call Nigeria today, okay? And she fought against the Portuguese for 40 years, fighting against slavery, right? Up until her elder age. Now, where did she go wrong at? Why did she eventually fall, or her kingdom end up falling? In return, okay, so let me give you the story behind this. She went to go meet with the Portuguese king, as you can see right here in this photo. And then the Portuguese king said that she was not worthy for sitting down. And so when she came in, they didn't have a seat for her. So she clapped the hands, and one of her soldiers came and she sat down on his back. And that's him right there. She's sitting down. So she negotiated with the Portuguese king, and then she agreed to open up trade routes and then accept Christianity. And from then it was over. Once they got you believing in their God and they got you believing, it was over. She was done. Okay, Madame Tinubu, the same thing. It's estimated that Madame Tinubu was out of the Congo area. It's estimated between these two women alone, they stopped over 10 million Africans from being taken out of Africa between their resistance. So we never hear about this story in our history. We don't hear, Africans, were a part of the slave trade. That's technically true and technically not true. It depends on how you're viewing it. If I give this brother something, and me and him have done exchange before, and he takes it outside of the room or somewhere where I can't see him, I don't know what he's doing with it. So when Africans were practicing in this form of servitude with the Europeans, they thought that they were doing the same thing that we were doing, but not knowing they was taking us to America and treating us harsh. So again, 10 million Africans, saved 10 million Africans from coming across that water. Okay, the mulatto problem in Haitian history. Okay, mulattoes became the biggest slave traders and landowners in Haiti, right? A lot of the big whites stayed in Europe. They never came to the island. A lot of them were mulattoes. So what they would do is they would have children with the what we call slave, the African slave, and then they would send them to France and then bring them back. Once they indoctrinated them, they became the biggest slave traders. Okay, what about insert biracial person's name? I hear this all the time. Well, what about this person? They were biracial. What about that person? They were biracial. We have to understand that the circumstances of when biracial people change based on the society, right? If biracial people are being treated as just as bad as black people are being treated, then they're going to be on the black people's side. If white people are treating them cool, then they're going to be on the white people's side. It's a roll of the dice. And my biggest thing is, if we can stop doing something, we don't have to worry about the problem. So if we can stop interracially dating, we don't have to worry about the offset of the Kamala Harris who come and people think they black, and then she's locking up black people and all in California. You get what I'm saying? So the circumstances change. I say just stop doing it, and we'll be a lot better off. It's too risky. All right, what did Haiti represent to the African world? It represented race vindication. Quick little story. One of the ways that I actually studied or began to study Haitian history was through African American history, right? Because I would read Marcus Garvey, I would read Frederick Douglass, I would read Booker T. Washington, I would read W. Du Bois, and they would always talk about Haiti. And I'm like, why are they talking about Haiti for? Like, I'm trying to learn, what's so important about Haiti? And what it meant to them was race vindication, the things that Haiti had done for African Americans in South America and the continent itself, right? So that's what Haiti meant to African Americans. It meant pride, that every time they would say, oh, well, you deserve to be slaves. You guys can't, uphold yourself. They'll say, well, what about Haiti? Haiti's a nation of his own. Haiti has his own empire. So it meant race vindication. Because again, to give you a little backdrop on that, everywhere around the world, people were either enslaved or facing some form of colonialism. Everywhere. Now imagine being a black person. You can't go anywhere in the world and somebody looks like you and they're in charge. So Haiti represented power, represented blackness to the black African world. All right, Haiti's influence on Africa through Marcus Garvey. So Marcus Garvey had a newspaper called the Negro World, and he would sneak the newspapers in as they would, do trade with Africa and Liberia and things like that. And so one of the people who used to read his newspaper as a child was Jomo Kenyatta. And so what they would do is they would memorize the whole newspaper and go back and teach it to other villagers. And one of the things that Garvey would always write about was the Haitian Revolution and how important the Haitian Revolution was. And if you see the first flag of Kenya, because Jomo Kenyatta is the liberator of Kenya, you see the first flag is red, black, and green. And it's still red, black, and green to this day, but it has an emblem in the middle. All right, bonus fact. Nigeria Civil War, Biafra versus Nigeria. We're going to make this real quick, real short. At some point in the 60s, Nigeria is being decolonized, and a group of Africans, specifically the Igbo people, decided that they wanted to become their own nation. They didn't want to be a part of what Nigeria had going on with Britain. And so they began a civil war, right? Haiti actually participated in that civil war and went to Nigeria to fight on behalf of Biafra to help free up Nigeria. So our blood is definitely in Africa as well. Okay, bonus fact, 1970, Trinidad's Black Power movement, right? So this brother right here was a big founding father of the Trinidadian movement for African liberation in Trinidad in the 60s. As you can see, who did he name himself after? Mackandal. Mackandal, one of the first revolutionary leaders that helped free up Haiti, right? And Trinidad was inspired by this brother right here, C.L.R. James, who wrote the book, The Black Jacobins. And so that book actually got banned in a few countries because it was inspiring so many revolutions in the 60s. This revolution actually made its way to Canada as well. This is how powerful it was. For the Black Jacobins, man, they tried to ban that book, really, because it talked about the Haitian Revolution in detail. All right, any last words? Yes, long live Haiti. So we do know how Nat Turner, Gabriel Prosser, Charles Dessalines, Denmark Vesey, and yes, John Brown was inspired by the Haitian Revolution. These brothers heard about what was going on and wanted to be a part of it. Matter of fact, Denmark Vesey, his plan was to steal a ship and go to Haiti. All right, another bonus fact. The Tula Revolt that took place in Caracal. Now, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. It's in the Caribbean, a little very small island, but it's still significant to us as Africans. They were inspired by the Haitian Revolution. They heard what was going on. This is actually a movie you can watch on YouTube as well, the Tula Revolt, where they talk about the Haitian Revolution, how they were inspired by that, right? So when I say the Haitian Revolution inspired the world, it inspired the world. James Theodore Hawley's impact on Haiti. This brother was an African-American who went to Haiti, created some institutions, specifically religious institutions, and created some of the first schools in Haiti, okay? He's actually a saint or a religious figure that they look up to in Haiti, specifically in Port-au-Prince area. And this is the church that he built when he went to Haiti, and this is the church now. Okay, so we see that cross mingle of African Americans going to Haiti and Haitians coming to America. This sister right here, Mary Langley, was one of the first Haitian women through Cuba to come to America and built one of the first institutions in 1863 to teach black children. It's in Baltimore. They're actually going to make her a saint in the Catholic religion soon, and she also has her school is still in Baltimore to this day. A Haitian woman. Forgive me, I got some cotton mouth like a mug going on. All right, we all know how the Juneteenth celebration was inspired by the Haitian Revolution. Some of the first early celebrations took place January 1st through January 4th. What is that? That's Haitian independence, right? Then when you look at the flag, you obviously see the color, and the star will be the bursting star of Texas, right? So we see the connection. Okay, Haiti Durham in North Carolina, been there, named after Haiti, right? Named after Haiti, inspired after Haiti. Remember, African Americans would come out of a situation where they were like, they seen Haiti as an influence to themselves. So they named their city Haiti Durham, North Carolina. Okay, and when you go there, at the top, you will see a veve, which is a Haitian voodoo sign at the top of the church in America. So you see the influence, you see the inspiringness. Is that a word? I don't even know. We're making up words today. It's all right. Inspiringness. Haiti, Missouri, founded in 1894, right? Okay, again, we know, inspired by Haiti. And this is just me going over stuff to catch people up to what we're talking about. The usage of Miranda 46, as my sister Melanie Glow talked about. This was a document that came out where the United States government had to separate African Americans from Caribbeans to continental Africans. They had to break up that unified Pan-Africanism that we had going on. Because prior to that, Africans was on point and they were on code. At the time in the 60s, you had the Black Panthers, SNCC, the whole civil rights movement. And then in Africa, you had Kwame Nkrumah, you had, can't can't think of anybody else right now. Patrice Lumumba, you had a whole movement, right? Matter of fact, prime example. I'm not clicking fast enough. This is Malcolm X, and this is Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, in Haiti, in Harlem with Malcolm X. You understand how powerful that is? You have the president of Ghana at a meeting with Malcolm X in Harlem. And he was the first person to say, I want African Americans to come back home. Now, how long you think he stayed in power? They got him out real fast. The CIA got him out real fast. And as you can see him with Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King actually went to his inauguration in 1956 and was there with him. He had a plan to bring African Americans back home. He didn't last long. All right, Hebrew Israelites, Moors, Native Americans, and ADOS. Again, this document, Miranda 46, talks about how they want to separate us, how they want to keep us fighting with each other because they don't want the reemergence of Pan-African ideas. They don't want us to start thinking as a block anymore. They want us to look at each other and say, yeah, you Haitian. I don't really like Haitians. Or you African American. I don't really like African Americans. Because if they could keep us divided, they could keep us controlled. Because there's no way that 10% of the world's population should be ruling over the other 90%. That doesn't make sense. You have to be crazy. We have a midget ruling over a giant. And that's the situation. And it was done with this document right here. All right. Historical Memoranda 46, right? Thomas Jefferson's whole presidency was designed, and RP Tony, because he asked me this question when I was doing the last election. I was like, what? What'd you say? I was like, what we talking about, man? And I actually went and looked it up. But Thomas Jefferson's whole thing when he was president is to keep African Americans away from Haitians. That was his whole thing. Like, they created laws and everything. And I also want to take the time and note to say, they can sleep with you and still hate your race. A lot of us get confused about that, right? What did Thomas Jefferson say? He referred to Toussaint's army as cannibals. But his lady, what is her name? How did I forget her name? Sally Hemings was a black woman, right? And these are actually his descendants. They meet every year in Washington, D.C. and Virginia, right? So Thomas Jefferson has black great-great-great-great-grandchildren. And Sally Hemings was his lady, his woman lady. So they can 100% sleep with you and still hate your race and still be a racist, all right? Okay, Haiti was there from the beginning until the U.S. stepped in. When they were creating the AU, the African Union, right? Haiti was on the ground, writing all the paperwork, getting all the documents together, getting every thing situated. And then the United States stepped in and said, hey, we're going to break this up if y'all let Haiti become a part of the African Union, which would mean Haiti would be considered a part of Africa. Even though it's in the Caribbean, it would have been considered a part of Africa. Now, why did they do that? Because Haiti's always been an example setter, right? They said, well, if you do that, then we're going to have to accept African Americans as being a part of that. And then Jamaicans, and then South American black people. We can't have that. So they broke it up, and then sadly, our brothers on the continent went for it and then kicked Haiti out of the African Union and didn't allow us to join. Okay, Miranda 46 in the Caribbean. Not all, but we do have a lot of division in the Caribbean and in other African cultures as well, right? Like, for example, Bahamas was once a haven, right? Is an island of fear for Haitians now. And this was in 1981. So at one point, Bahamas was a place that Haitians can go to and be free and be cool. And now you can see the temperature of how Bahamians treat Haitians to this day. Not all, but it's a lot. And so you see that Miranda 46 working in our mind as we deal with each other on a day-to-day basis, right? Now, let's talk about Miranda 46 and Haitian culture, all right? Now, again, don't throw no rocks at me now. All right, how New York Haitians look at Miami Haitians. Both Haitians. How French Haitians look at Creole-speaking Haitians, right? How Haitian Americans, it's a whole thing they create in us. Where we feel like, well, I'm better than you because I do this, or I'm better than you because I'm this, and you get what I'm saying? So it's not just an ADOS thing, an African American thing, it's a global thing that they have put into our mind. And I call that I don't call that, but it's called the Willie Lynch syndrome, if you want to break it down. Now, a lot of people say, well, Brother Hassan, Willie Lynch syndrome might not be true. It might be fake. Who wrote the letter? It doesn't matter if it's real or fake, but are you contributing or are you acting as if the letter writes? That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter if it's real, somebody wrote it or not. Are you behaving that way is what really matters. Same thing with Miranda 46. Somebody can say, well, that's fake. I don't believe it's fake. I don't believe it's a CIA document. Well, are you acting that way? Then the letter becomes true through your behavior. All right, so Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela flag. We all know that flag is modeled after the Haitian flag, as you can see right here. The blue and red. They just added the gold at the top because the first place that the Grand Colombia flag flew was in Haiti, because Seaman Boulevard, this gentleman right here, and Miranda came running to Haiti. We need y'all help. Come on. We trying to get separate from the Spaniards. And so Haiti helped them out. Cinco, the no Haitians allowed, right? I laugh at my own jokes. So I don't care if y'all laugh or not. But, oh, you got it? Okay, all right. So Cinco, the no Haitians allowed, right? So we know that Haiti obviously went in, also helped Mexico get their independence and their become free from Spain. All right? They greased us. No? All right, whatever, next joke. All right, so we also helped Greece receive their independence, right? And Greece did not help as well, as you can see Haiti right there. All right. Haiti's been helping the United States since the 1760s. So we fought in the American Revolution, fought in the Civil War, fought in World War I, fought in World War II. In my opinion, because I'm an African, we fought on the wrong side. That's just my opinion as an African. We fought on the wrong side. All right. During that time period, men of color meant Haitian. Anytime you read men of color in their documents, that's a way of removing the identity. It's Haitian people. This brother ain't no man of color. And he fought in the Battle of, was New Orleans? The Battle of New Orleans, right? He fought in the Battle of New Orleans. And they labeled a man of color. That man is black. Black. But that's a way of diminishing your accomplishments as an African person. All right. So Haiti fought in Ethiopia twice. During the first Italian invasion that took place in the early 1800s, where they didn't win. This brother right here, Benito Silva, actually went there and helped fight as well. He was a journalist. He did a whole bunch of things. And then we also went back as the Tuskegee Airmen. So African Americans and Haitians as Tuskegee Airmen went to go fight in Ethiopia. All right, Haiti the first to help and the last to benefit from. So Haiti was a part of the League of the Nations when it first got started, and a part of the United Nations when it first got started. And you see how they treat Haiti to this day? And they were the first people to step in and say, hey, we want to do this, we want to do that. All right, the first to be free, the first to travel. So as I study African American history, I would always see Haitian names pop up in African American history, whether it be the founding father of Chicago, which is John Baptiste Point du Sable, you get him saying, or this brother up here, Granville, you will always see the Haitian names pop up, but you got to search for them though. This brother right here, Leo Pierre, was an inventor. He created an invention, he created a Tommy gun, and then he also created another invention. And instead of the Europeans paying him, you know what they did? They kicked him out the country instead of paying him. And so when you look this brother up, he never got paid for his inventions. How many inventions from African people do we really have that we don't know that we created? They deported this man. They said, you want to get paid? All right, get on this ship, and sent him back to Haiti. He never got his money. He's still waiting on it. The Haitian community in Illinois, right? So the Louisiana Purchase took place, and a lot of people just think there was Louisiana for some reason, but it was actually 13 states that were purchased, right? And so Haitians were like the first people coming over and populating what we call Illinois and Chicago. This is how the brother so-called found Chicago, right? This brother right here, William D. DeFleur, was Abraham Lincoln's barber for 24 years. He cut Abraham Lincoln's hair. Haitian man. You know that history. Haitians were up and down the Mississippi, back and forth, because, again, we were the first to get the independence. All right. Haiti was worth more than 13 states. Again, I talked about this is the whole Louisiana Purchase. It's not just this. It's all of this. So that means Haitians were all up in this area after the Haitian Revolution, because, again, Napoleon had to sell that portion of the United States to the United States, which sounds crazy, but he had to sell it to them because he wanted to keep fighting in Haiti. And that's how important Haiti was to the French. They needed that sugar coming out of there. And he said, yo, I'm out of money. What do I have? They said, well, we got them 13 states over there. He said, sell that. We need to get these slaves back on the island of Haiti and line, right? And so here's a quote from, and he also had a black wife. Oh, well, not a black wife, but a black woman, Napoleon, all right? And his statement was, my decision to destroy the authority of blacks in Saint-Domingue, Haiti, is not so much based on consideration of commerce and money as the need to block forever the march of blacks in the world. Meaning, it ain't really about the money. I could care less about the money. I want to stop Negroes from moving forward anywhere in the world. David Walker, write that name down. We're going to talk about that name in a little later. David Walker. All right. And one thing I want to say is never think that Europeans don't know who you are, because they know your greatness, and that's why racism does exist, because they have to hold you back. You have this dude right here, this, I will call him a gentleman. I'm always scared of white men who dress like that. When they dress like that, I think slave owner right off the bat. He was Napoleon's right-hand man. He wrote a book called The Ruins of Empire, right? And he said in the book, the people that we are enslaving are the people that we learn mathematics, language, the solar system from. Like, they know who we are. You're wasting your time when you try to convince Europeans how smart we are, how brilliant we are, how we need a fair chance as them. You're wasting your time because they know who you are. This is why they hold you back. You don't hold a people back who's weak. You hold only the powerful people back. You only hold the powerful people back. All right, history doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's one of the things that, I see in the more westernized educational system, that when we think about American history, it just becomes American history, as if there weren't other people who contributed to American history. All right, 6 book references that y'all want to look out. This is where most of the information comes from, right? This information right here. I want to tell a quick little story while y'all take pictures or write these books down. So this lecture almost ain't happened today. And the reason why this lecture ain't almost happened today, and this is kind of the sense of the lecture, is that just because Europeans make the poison don't mean you have to overdose on it. So I was having problems sleeping last night, and I decided to take some melatonin, right? Anybody know what melatonin is? It helps you go to sleep. So around 2 o'clock in the morning, I said, damn, them things ain't working, man. Let me go get some more. I'll pop some more. And then pop some more. And then I started becoming delusional. And my sister was like, you need some tea. You need, Africans, we need tea. That's going to fix you right there. She got me some tea. She got me right. She got me straight. But the point I'm trying to say, just because they make the poison don't mean you got to take it like that. The only difference between poison and medication is dosage. Because medication is poison. If you take too much, you can be poisoned. And so I took a little too much and almost didn't get up out of bed. And it was bad. It was real bad, trust me. All right, y'all got the books? All right, moving forward. Our American history doesn't happen in a vacuum. As we know, as American history was taking place, you had all these things happening in the world. You had the Haitian Revolution. You had Africa being colonized. You had the Zulu Wars. I mean, you had so many things taking place in the world. But in this culture, they teach you that, America is just so great, and nobody helped us, and nobody contributed to that, and we're just great and the greatest empire in the world because we did it on our own. All right, correcting whitewash history. Haiti was the first free country in the world. Let's say that together. Haiti was the first free country in the world. I don't care what no European says. If you look at when they got their independence in 1776, they only had 13 colonies. That's not the whole country. That's only the eastern part of the country. And it's not even the whole eastern part. So how are you the first independent country? Haiti was, because in 1804 we got our independence, right? You only freed 13 colonies. When you look at their constitution, it excluded black people. It only focused on white people, and it excluded white women too. Because white men have a thing, they don't like their women, but they don't. They oppress their women too. Shut up, you want to vote? Shut up, you can't vote. Like, black people got the right to vote before they got the right to vote, but that's just their culture, right? So, as you can see, they excluded black people and women. The Haitian Constitution put everybody in it. Blacks, whites. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying they put everybody in it, right? As you can see, Africans were still enslaved. On the island of Haiti, everybody was free. So what was the first free country in the world? Haiti. And we got to correct that. 13 colonies don't consider to be no country. That ain't no country. That's 13 colonies. But that's how white supremacy worked, though. So the Haitian Revolution is like no other revolution. Do not get it confused. The Greeks didn't do it. The Romans didn't do it. The American Revolution didn't do it. And the French Revolution didn't do it. There is no time in history where a group of people were slaves and became the ruler of a nation or a country. Nobody has ever done that. Nobody has ever done that. That is tremendous. And this was the only revolution where everyone was involved. This was a family revolution. 55% of soldiers were women and children. The children would sit up in trees and make noises with their mouths and warn the soldiers. The women would hide the men. The women were soldiers as well. There's no revolution like the Haitian Revolution. There is no revolution like the Haitian Revolution. All right? And as this I'm going to call him a gentleman again because his kid's in the room. As Charles Leclerc says to his letter to Napoleon, he says, in the present insurrection, these men may be killed, but they will not surrender. They laugh at death, and with their women, it is the same. They will bring in man-eating dogs from Cuba. They will burn Haitians alive, and they'll say, I don't care. I don't care. And they would not give up, and the fight would continue. Okay, even with the children, they could not break our spirit because we didn't take on their religion at that point. But I'm going to get to that. All right, so Africans are the most important people in the world. Now, I don't mean to sound, crazy, but every war since 1492 and therefore after has been fought for African people or Africa. That is a fact. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. It has been fought for Africa or African people. When you look at what they teach us how World War I started is that this duke right here was assassinated. But they never tell you why he was assassinated. At that time period, Africa was being colonized. It was called the Scramble for Africa. And his family was trying to dominate all of Africa for the natural resources. And somebody said, man, grab that little gun right there, bow, and shot him. And that started World War I. You hear what I'm saying? That started World War I, fighting over Africa. And that fight went into Africa. Every war since 1492 has been fought for African people, or on Africa, or for our resources that we provide. All right, Haiti weakened Western power in the Western Hemisphere. So, being the lovely Africans that we are, let me see if I get on this side so I could kind of point to it. Matter of fact, excuse me. Cameraman, I'm not messing you up, am I? You good? All right. All right, so this historian right here, Robert T. Hill, has said, whatever may be said against the Haitians, it should be remembered that these people nearly a century instituted the movement in which ended in Brazil in 1860 resulted in driving the institution of slavery out the Western Hemisphere, which means we pushed slavery out of this area here. I mean, no more slavery in here. We kicked it out. Now, inadvertently, what did this do? Inadvertently, Europeans lost their power in the Western Hemisphere. We kicked out France, we kicked out Spain, we kicked out Portugal because we were helping America and other European white folk, right? This, in turn, made Europeans look and say, well, we need slaves. What's going to happen? They begin to colonize Africa. And this is why Africa ended up getting colonized in 1888. They sat down, they chopped it up and broke it up and said, okay, you're going to take here, you're going to take there, and you're going to take this. It was because Haiti kicked slavery out of the Western Hemisphere. All right, big three events that took place. So as you can see on this chart right here, you have Britain, that was here, France, right there, and Spain had all this part, right? And so when Haitians came in, they fought again. They helped Mexico defeat Spain. They helped France, they inadvertently helped the United States win the 13 colonies, and then they fought in the American Revolution, which kicked out the powers, right? So, see, y'all ain't even I almost missed my note. So 1776 to 1865, remember that, write that down. 1776 to 1865, that's gonna be very important later. All right, so when helping too many people goes wrong, right? So again, we helping all the European nations gain independence, we helping people get independence. And so what's beginning to happen is the 13 colonies begin to go this way once the Louisiana Purchase is done, right? And remember, we helped Mexico win their independence from Spain, right? So we helped end slavery in that portion of what we call the United States to this day. And then we helped slavery go this way because we helped the United States become independent. You see how that works when you help too many people? We helped in slavery, and then because we helped the white folk, and I'm using that term because kids in the room, help the white folks, they begin to take slavery this way. This is why you have Juneteenth, and in Texas, they were the last to learn about the ending of slavery because the white folks say, oh, don't we got slaves out west too? It's like, oh yeah, go tell them that they're free. Because they forgot about them because they just acquired that territory. And this is why Texas was the last to know about that, right? All right, so how can I put this in terms where this is going to make sense? So we're talking about how Europeans were in the Western Hemisphere. And as you can see from here, this is the Caribbean. Europeans had control of that. When I mean Europeans, I mean Europe. Europe. They had control of this. Haiti, the French, the other half of the Spaniards, et cetera, et cetera. They had control of that, right? They also had control of the southern part. That's the part they don't teach us in history, right? When you talk about American slavery, you have to understand that this United States government, understand what I'm saying, only had slaves from 1776 until 1865. Before that time period, it was Britain, France, and other European people in that power. This is a book right here, Haiti's Influence on Antebellum America, right? If you go to some of these plantations in the South, you will see they have French names. They have Spanish names. It's because those were the people enslaving Africans, right? So it says the influence of the Caribbean, particularly of Haiti, on the United States remains neglected, a neglected area of historical scholarship, despite this new awareness of blacks' role in American history. They leave that part out. We never hear about that part. So let me backtrack. So if your parents, and let's do psychological research here. If your ancestry traces back to the South, where do you come from? Haiti or the Caribbean. Because who was enslaving up in this area? Europeans. Oh yeah, I'm gonna tie in how we all connected. Y'all gonna get this today. Y'all gonna get this today. New Orleans and Haiti, right? So New Orleans and Haiti has a real cultural, this is actually a painting. These are actually paintings. And I wish I could blow it up. I don't want to run over there. You see this flag right here in New Orleans? If y'all can see it, what flag is that? That's a Haiti flag. That's black and red. In New Orleans. Huh? I don't remember the name of the painting right now. I'm not going to lie to you. It's black and red. No, it's black and red. It's black and red. That is our flag right there. That is our flag. And as you can see, in 1809, the Haitian Revolution ended, and then Haitians began to travel, black and white, began to travel to the United States, specifically in that New Orleans area. And when I say New Orleans area or Louisiana area, I mean the whole 13 states. The whole 13 states. We begin to populate those areas. You can see it in the way the homes were in New Orleans. When you go to New Orleans, this is a photo from 1875. They call them shotgun houses, right? 1911, Haiti, shotgun house. New Orleans, shotgun house. You see that we just moved with our culture to the United States deeply. And when you go through Missouri, you will see these shotgun houses because Africans moving took it with them from one place to another. Voodoo. I mean, nobody practiced more voodoo than a Louisiana person. Like, let's keep it real. You know what I'm saying? And then, they bring in the Rugus, the white folk, and the question I got to ask is, voodoo is about ancestry worship, right? About paying respect to your ancestors. How do you pay respect to the people who enslaved you? Even though they didn't do it, their ancestors had a part in it. How can you pay respect to your ancestors when you praying with the person next to you? Even though all white people didn't own slaves, I get that part. All white people participated in the system of slavery. Now you say, oh, well, that's a bold statement to make. Well, slavery revolved around what? Insurance, ship making, slave catchers. I mean, what were you doing, white folk? You were doing something. What job you had? So they had all white people benefiting from it. Whether it be snitching on a snitching on a black person or what, they all had a part to do with it. Don't ever get that confused. They played both sides of the coin. Jazz music migrated with Haitians to what we call Louisiana now. And that became very, very big, right? Right there, would say, without Haiti, New Orleans wouldn't sound like New Orleans. Everybody know this but us. We don't know if you don't know this. God dang, Urugu, and they all up in the photo holding the banner. Because culture lives within the people, not on a landmass. Culture lives within you. Anywhere you go, you're going to move with your culture. Haitians came from Haiti. We brought our culture here to Little Haiti. You start seeing jigneys. What's a jigney? A jigney is a tap-tap van. It's a tap-tap van. So your culture lives within you. As Marina Ani says, your culture is your immune system. Always remember that. If you got a messed up culture, you're going to be a messed up person. All right, so the second line. In New Orleans, when somebody passed away, they go through with the jazz, they playing, the procession is behind them, the body's behind them, they're taking them to their grave. In Haitian voodoo, same thing. Matter of fact, when I went to New Orleans and I was walking through the cemetery, you could see they bury each other the same way. The caskets off the ground, it's the same thing. Second line, Mardi Gras. Do I really gotta, come on, Mardi Gras? In Creole, we gotta word Mardi Gras. Do we really gotta break it down where it come from? So we see that. We see them celebrating. Now they wear the Native American costumes, not because they're Native American, but because it was outlawed to have African celebrations in Louisiana at that time period. You couldn't celebrate. That's why they have places like Congo Square, where the Africans used to go to meet at. So they disguised what they were doing with Native American uniforms. Not that we are Native Americans. We are not Native Americans. Africa is everywhere Africans are. When you go to the western part of Africa, they have a bean, pea soup that they eat in western part of Africa. When you go to Haiti, we call it what? Soup jumeau. Because what happens is the culture goes with us, but the ingredients might change depending on where we at in the world. It's the same thing. And then when you go to Louisiana, you got the gumbo. It's the same thing. We're talking about the same culture, just changing because the environment changed. But it's always in us. We more African than we know it. All right, I actually tried to find this brother when I went to New Orleans. This was the president of Haiti. And I'm going to show you how connected they were. There are more Haitian leaders and political figures buried in Jamaica and Louisiana than they are buried in Haiti. Because when they would get exiled, where would they run? To Jamaica or to Louisiana. And so this brother right here, Pierre Nord Alex, is actually buried in New Orleans because he fled to New Orleans when he got, ousted and overthrown. All right, the fleur de lis is a French symbol, and this is a symbol they used to brand on slaves, right? That is a French symbol, and they still use it to this day. New Orleans Saints, you go through New Orleans, you're going to see all this symbol. And this is what it was, because the French, again, had that southern region. When you go throughout the South, you will see that Caribbean and French influence. All right. They went from being Haitians to Louisiana Creoles, the southern states ruled by Beyonce. Beyonce's mom specifically called herself a Creole. She's from Texas. Remember what I said? 13 states. She said as a child, she stopped speaking Creole because they'll make fun of her. And as we can see, the Destrehan plantation, which was at one point ruled by the Spanish, right? This brother Charles Delon came and started a revolution, one of the biggest revolutions in 1811 in New Orleans, right? He was from Haiti. All right, so now let me tie all this in to make it make sense. So in America, only 3% of Africans made it here to the slave trade. The majority of Africans went to the Caribbean and South America. So only 3% came here to the United States. But as you can see, what you can't see, actually I wrote it right here. God dang, I'm so genius. In 1755, you can see in Maryland, they had 1,000-something people, 1,000-something black people. This is the census that I got, 1,000-something, right? In Virginia, same thing, 1,000, right? Can y'all see that? Maybe the chair in the way. Can y'all see it? Hey, Cal, I'm gonna need a tip, man. I'm doing moving furniture and all, brother. Getting big out here. I got you. Especially if it's white people in the alley. You really gotta watch out. So by 1810, it shoots up to 100,000 something. I know we like to groove, but we don't groove like that for the numbers to jump So significantly in that amount of time, where did those people come from? The Caribbean, from Haiti. And these are the census that they tell you how many black people were in Virginia at that time, how many black people were in Maryland, and then look how the number jumped. So when I tell you that your ancestry traced back from Caribbean, you Caribbean, whether you want to believe it or not, because the majority of the slave trade took place where? In these ports right here. And there's a good book you read on it, The Warmth of Other Suns, where they talk about the migration. Now The Warmth of Other Suns, where they talk about the migration of people from the southern, because now I'm going to tie it in now. Black people weren't being enslaved up here. When slavery ended, you had the great migration of blacks. You ask any black person where they family from, they're going to say, oh, my family traced back to Mississippi. My family traced back to Louisiana. Any New Yorker, any Chicagoan, any Los Angeles person. Matter of fact, Los Angeles, when they started moving there, a lot of the folk came from Texas. So when I say your people come from the Caribbean and you in the United States, your people come from the Caribbean. You're not Native American. The numbers didn't somehow get switched. Caribbean people started coming here during the Haitian Revolution. I'm going to give you a famous example on that. Did anybody know who this is? This is the accused assassin of Tupac Shakur. Orlando Brown, I believe his name is. That's his uncle over there, Keefe. They're big-time Crips in Los Angeles. They are the descendants of Nat Turner. This is a fact. They are descendants of Nat Turner. The people who are accused of killing Tupac are the descendants of Nat Turner. Their family moved up to California, settled there, and there you go. That's the famous example right there. How our families moved up to different areas. So also in the northern portion, speaking about Philadelphia, you had Haitians that were coming here, 1800s, 1700s, Haitian Revolution, and they try to say that we brought yellow fever from Haiti, but you had one of the first yellow fever outbreaks took place where Haitians and white folk began to come to Philadelphia and populate that area. So now if you want to say, oh, well, what about the North? They had blacks. Well, I'm showing you where they came from, and you can look this up. Okay? Jamaica, Queens, right? It's not called Queens for no reason. We think Jamaica, Queens is a new neighborhood. Jamaica, Queens go way back in the day, 1800s. They called it Queens because it was owned by the Queen of England. And they called it Jamaica because they had a lot of Jamaican indentured servants. Look this up. Don't believe me. You don't got to believe me. And most African Americans have similar names with Jamaicans because they were ruled by what? Britain. And so you think you African American, but your family really Jamaican when you really look at it. Because most Jamaicans got last names like what? Brown, Campbell, Charles, Williams. Same thing as African Americans. Same thing as African Americans. But what's going to happen is the same thing's going to happen to us to this day. Right now I have two daughters, two beautiful daughters. My Creole ain't that good because my mom ain't teach me no good Creole like that. I had to learn through conversations. And what's going to happen 5 generations from now, my children might not remember that they was Haitian or that their ancestry was Haitian because it might not mean anything to them. So when you look at African Americans, they just forgot that they came from the Caribbean. That's it. That's it. Hopefully we could teach our children our Haitian, African, Jamaican cultures and things like that. But that's a prime example of what happened. Okay? Even in Miami, I was talking to my sister Melanie Glow today. I said, yo, your family from the Bahamas, man. Like, I get a Bahamas vibe from you, man. Your family from the Bahamas, man. And when you look at the first blacks in Miami, they were from Bahamas. The first people to settle this area. This is why we have Goombay. We got Conch. You know what I'm saying? This is why we have it. This is why we have Juve. Because that culture comes from the Bahamas. I'm not taking no questions, brother. I got to speed through. I got to speed through. You know what I'm saying? So these communities were first founded by Bahamian people. All right. They come to Haiti to loot. That's a good word that I'm going to use. I'm going to use loot. They come to Haiti to loot. This gentleman, we're using gentleman because there's kids in the room. This gentleman right here, Gerard, went to Haiti and stole over $10 million from Haiti. Big time. Stole Haiti. Went to Philadelphia and built a college, Gerard College, which is still functioning to this day. And he also funded a lot of wars in the United States, and he helped fund the government and things like that because they were going through their situation. And he also, he also created a bank, Gerard Bank, which now is Citizens Bank today. So the money that he stole from Haiti came to the United States, invested in the United States, created his own bank, is now Citizens Bank to this day. Oh, yeah. Okay? And J.A. Rogers writes in his book about how he took the money and Toussaint was sent to France to die in a prison, and he refused to give the money back. Okay? And nobody never talks about how Napoleon died, right? Never talk about how Napoleon died. See, he big mad. He big mad. Over here, I'm Sir Napoleon, but right here, he big mad. So he was beat. The French and the British were beefing. And so they end up capturing him in a war, and they end up putting him on an island, right? And he didn't have resources. He died the same way that Toussaint died, alone and sick by himself. Because what goes around comes around. Our ancestors do not like ugly. And you see him right there. Died on the island by himself. All right. The first Underground Railroad, Florida. All right, George Biassou, which is, I think he's very underrated when it comes to Haitian history and United States American history. He was one of the founding fathers of the Haitian Revolution, but people don't talk about him because him and Toussaint got in a beef over some griot. It's like, no, that's my piece. And it's like, no, and then they end up fighting, and then he ended up coming to Florida under the Spanish, right? I'm joking. I was saying, it's a little pork dipped in some sauce. But they ended up getting into it, so he came to Florida, and then, he ended up being the second highest general in the Spanish crown. And so one of the things that he did is he provided a safe place for African Americans to run during slavery. They would run to Florida, all right? And the United States couldn't have that. That was creating a real problem for the United States, so they decided to isolate Florida and make Georgia a state, so that it'd be a longer trip for the Africans to make it to Florida, right? And they created harsher slave laws and things like that, as you could check out by the dates. There's a book you can read on that called Florida's Negro War, because our ancestors are the Seminoles. Seminole simply means runaway. It simply means a runaway African, right? And so when you go through a lot of Florida cities, you will see that they're named after, can I say it once? They're named after crackers. Most Florida cities. Miami-Dade is named after Dade, this cracker right here. Oh, let me stop. This Urugu right here, who wanted to suppress what the Africans were doing here in the United States, right? Specifically in Florida. Orlando, also named after Urugu. So these people were influential in fighting against African liberation. This is why there is so much vitriol for Florida. A lot of people may not know this. There's a lot of vitriol for Florida, and there's a level of suppression. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a friend one time that went to prison. He went up to Lake Butler prison, and he said that the white dudes had a jar full of golds of black dude gold teeth that they knocked out. And every dude would come through and say, yeah, Negro, yeah, we're going to show you. Like, there's a hate for black people like none other in the United States in Florida. So, yeah, this is true story. All right, so again, Seminole just means runaway. Okay, so if his name Jackson is named after him, Andrew Jackson, right? Any place you go, that name Jackson, Jacksonville, Florida, is named after him because he was the general that came in and shut down the Seminoles after George Biassou had died. George Biassou trained them, but after he died, I don't know, people just got lax or whatever the case may be. And he came in and shut down Florida and said, we taking Florida as a state. Andrew Jackson. So any place named after this Urugu is because he went in and shut down the rebellion. Now, Florida lynched more black people per capita than any state. You see, I'm talking about that hatred. Florida lynched more black people than any state per capita. And you see that they're trying to destroy that pride that was created through the Haitian Revolution, through us fighting the resistance. They're coming in lynching. Look at the articles. Massacres. We know about Rosewood, but we don't know about the rest of them. Massacre after massacre after massacre in Florida. Man, when I rode through Rosewood, my soul, and I don't get scared. I don't get scared that often. Probably get scared of, planes and snakes, but I don't get scared that often. I was literally flying through Rosewood to get out of there. My spirit was not right. I can't explain that feeling, but I knew the ancestors were there. And so as we see again, The mental breakdown, they destroy. That's why we got a little bit of a problem in Florida with cooning, because that generational breakdown, they hate them buck breaking us, destroying our communities. And you can see, again, lynching after lynching all through Florida to break that will in us to want to resist. Okay? And also, they will use our children for gay debate. The University of Florida, they're, and this is how history ties into culture, but their symbol or what they do in their chant is gay debate. And that comes from them feeding our children to alligators. All right, so we're going to get now into the power influence. So I think we should be all caught up. We all caught up? Everybody caught up? You on the same page? All right, cool. The power influence. There would be no Boys to Men if there wasn't for New Edition. There would be no New Edition if there wasn't for the Jackson 5. Everybody is influenced by something or somebody, right? That's the power of influence. Note, Boys to Men is actually named after a New Edition song. They actually named themselves after a song that inspired them. This is influence. We're talking about African influence. So Haiti was the most photographed and written about country since 1791. The most. There is no place that's more written about. You can quote me on that. You can write it down, send it to me in a postcard. I'm telling you, the most written about place in the world, still to this day. Not always in a positive way, but still to this day. Now, why was it the most written about? You had Africans coming out of slavery who built the largest fortress in the Western Hemisphere. There is nothing like this. The city, there is nothing like this on the western part of the world. The largest. So much so that Jean-Jacques Dessalines imagined it, and Henry Christophe built it. And so he built it to a way where if the French was going to come back and enslave them, that they can live up there to at least a year up on this mountain. They got aqueducts for rain, so when the rain comes down, these are the people that you call ignorant, the people that you call slaves, that they can't read. They're building things like this on top of mountains. There's nothing like this in the Western Hemisphere. And then the palace that the king built. Okay, so this is why what made it the most written about and talked about place since 1791. Okay, this is a photograph taken in 1875 by an African American who came to Haiti and photographed some brothers because he wanted to bring it back to America and show, what blackness is supposed to be and et cetera, because again, we've been free for quite some time, 1804 to 17. And so he brought these photographs back and it inspired African American men to say, yo, man, we can do the same thing. Okay, also photographs taken of Haitian women. And I say this in the most endearing term, in no way disrespectful, but they were creating womanhood from the image of Haitian women, right? Because understand, they were coming out of slavery, and so they had no idea what it meant to be a free black woman. So where do you turn to understand to be a free black woman? People that have been free for so long. You look to them. And so you see that in their writings, of course. We see African-American women in Haiti, Durham, Haiti, talking about Haiti. And you also see that in some of the newspapers. Teresa was a Haitian tale that African-American writers would write, sometimes fictional, sometimes true, about Haitian stories to influence women on how to be women, on how to be revolutionary, on how to be this, on how to be that, right? So you see that in the articles. You go into the archives. Well, I should have ate something before I came up here, boy. Woof. Also, the first womanism, right? Not feminism, because feminism is for the Europeans. We're talking womanism, right? They were influenced. The first black womanism was influenced by the Haitian Revolution. They'll put little inserts. See, white people like to insert them stuff. They'll put little stuff like, oh, well, they was influenced by the American Revolution and the French Revolution. How? When y'all oppress your own women. What inspiration are these black women going to find in a revolution that was mostly fought by men and was an oppressive revolution? So they really looked at the Haitian Revolution. Let's just keep it real. This sister right here, Miss Theodore Harley, she's the daughter of the gentleman, the African-American that I talked about that went back to Haiti. She's the daughter of him. She wrote a book called Haitian Girl, which obviously influenced a lot of folk here as well. And stories that they will write. People like Santi Belair, right, who was a high-ranking general in the Haitian Revolution, who used to dress up like a man, right, to fool. Sometimes she'll be a woman, sometimes she'll be a man. And funny story, when she finally got captured, they captured her before her husband. And her husband turned himself in, and she's like handcuffed, and she's like, "Man, what you doing here?" And he's like, "Man, I couldn't let you go through this by yourself. They told me if I turn myself in, they'll let you go." She's like, "Stupid. You gonna turn yourself in." So then, they about to execute the husband. They line him up against the wall. They blindfold him and do all that stuff like that. And he's shaking. So she walks over and said, "Die like a man. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's not about how you live, it's about how you die, man. Leave a legacy." So she slapped the husband, and then he dies. They execute him. And then it's her turn. And it's like, "Well, you a woman. We're going to go ahead and give you a woman execution." She said, "Saudi lie? What you say? Woman execution? No, we're not doing that. You're going to give me the firing squad like you give all real soldiers in this thing, right?" So they argue with her. They're like, "Oh, my gosh. All right, go ahead. Just give her what she want. Let her get the firing squad." Okay. They try to blindfold. She said, Hey, you're not going to mess my hair up. Don't mess my hair up. I'm going out good. I don't need no blindfold." So then she gets up against the wall, and she says, "Ready, set, fire." She gave the orders for her to be assassinated. That's a soldier. That's a G. That's inspiration. You also got some of the Caribbean rebellions were influenced by Haitian women as well. You have the St. Thomas Virgin Island rebellions. We had 3 women who took over the whole island and fought back against the Dutch, the British, when they were finally put down, I think after like 9 months to a year, but they took over the whole island, black women. You also have this woman in Guantanamo who was pregnant and ran a revolution. Pregnant. And you know what, when the French finally caught her, they waited till she had the baby, and then they executed her. But you see the influence of these women being influenced, right? And you also have Catherine Dunham, who was, so today when we go to Afrocentric schools like this one, and we see like the Caribbean type dance, she went to Haiti and studied Haitian voodoo dance. She also even became a mumbo in the voodoo religion. And she brought it back to America and said, because again, to give context, at that time, some people might say, "Well, why didn't she go to Africa?" Because Africa was colonized. So you go to the next place, which is Haiti. So she went to Haiti, learned the dance, got involved in voodoo, brought it back to the United States, and start, bringing it to the Harlem Renaissance, et cetera, et cetera. All right. U.S. laws based on Haiti and the Haitian Revolution. Well, I see some pizza, boy. I just said I was hungry, too. Boy, ancestors, boy, you don't be lying, boy. So 1808, the Slave Trade Act, right? R.I.P. Tony, because, again, that's the question he asked me when I was doing the last lecture. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "What are you talking about, brother?" But then I went back and I researched, and I was like, I see what he was saying. Again, about Thomas Jefferson, not allowing Haitians or Haitian slaves to come here to the United States, right? They created a law to block them. But Haitians obviously were still sneaking here. Again, and it was 13 colonies. So movies like Amistad, which is a true story, by the way, you would see that at the end of the movie, they end up sending the Africans back to where they believe they came from. And that took place a lot in the United States because they thought that they were spies for Haiti. If they was like, "Where you from? You can't be no slave." And so they were the Southerners were very, very scared of having that influence sneak into the United States. And so when you see stories like Amistad, which is a true story, by the way, and them being sent back to Africa or to wherever else it was because they were the fear of having Haitians sneak in. So now, what did this do? When they stopped the slave trade, because at some point they said, "Okay, look, y'all sneaking in people from other places, we're going to stop the United States slave trade." And so what they did is, since you can't bring any more slaves in, what they began to do is what is called the reverse Underground Railroad. Anybody familiar with the movie 12 Years a Slave? That was the reverse Underground Railroad. Go to the north and snatch a Negro out the city and bring them down to the south. Because they weren't allowing anybody to come in anymore with slaves. Because they were scared that the Haitian Revolution would keep going. So I want to keep slavery going. I'm going to kidnap some Negroes from the north. And so they created what is called the reverse Underground Railroad. All right. And also this created the effects of that would be Southern breeding farms. They got to keep the institution going. So they said, we're not bringing in more slaves. Now we got to make them breed so we can create more slaves. And as a slave maker said one time, he said, "You don't beat the slave, excuse me, hold on. Okay. A slave master once said, "Don't beat the African out of them, birth the African out of them." As I said earlier, 5 generations from now, my children might not be that well into Haitian culture, right? If you can create a child, you could tell that child, you ain't nothing. And how can they tell you that they're wrong? Because that's all they know. All they know is slavery, right? Fish don't know they out of water until they out of water. They born into a situation. The same way we're born into this. Like a lot of us don't think we crazy. Be crazy. But because we're born into it, it seems normal to us. It seems normal to want to wear, let me not get into that. I don't want nobody to drag me on the stage and I be getting dragged on the stage. But it seems normal to want to mimic your oppressor. It seems normal to identify with their language before identifying with your race. You get what I'm saying? Like I get a lot of people saying, oh, I'm Spanish. You're not Spanish, you speak Spanish, you African, right? So those things seem normal to us, but that's because we were born in the water or white supremacy. And then also you had the Color Seamen's Act, where they said, listen, if y'all coming into these ports, y'all got to stay at the ports. We're not allowing y'all to come in because y'all influencing our slaves in the United States. So again, I'm going back to show y'all how that Miranda 46 is going throughout history. We have to keep them separated. We have to keep them from not mingling and coexisting with one another. Also, one of the biggest ones, bang, bang, was influenced by the Haitian Revolution was the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was signed in existence 4 months after the Haitian Revolution. Them white folk was sitting around and say, so we got the First Amendment, freedom of speech and all that. What else we got? They just had a rebellion in Haiti, so we all need guns. No, black people can't have guns, but we all need guns. And that law was specifically signed based on the Haitian Revolution. 4 months after that revolution took place. Got to read them documents, boy. Get real serious. People, places, and things. All right, so during the American Revolution, you had African Americans, I'm using the term so we can all understand what I'm saying. You had African Americans who named themselves American Toussaints. They were considered we the American Toussaints. We here to liberate. We here to free our people, right? You also have the 54th Massachusetts Infantry, a.k.a. Toussaint's Guards, where they called themselves that. These were the first black people who fought in the Civil War, if people don't know the history behind that. And they called themselves that. Okay? You also had in Philadelphia, shout out to my Philly people, anybody from Philly in here. A few months after the Haitian Revolution, January 4th, 1804, about 6 months after that, you had a group of black Philadelphian people who whooped the mess out of some white folk. And they said, we're going to do to you what the Haitians did to the French people, because they didn't allow them to participate in a celebration. And so these black folk in Philadelphia went around beating up white folk and fighting with white folk and said, we're going to show you what we about, because they did it in Haiti and we could do it here. Okay? The Freedom Journal, magazine or newspaper article that was created by African Americans, and these two brothers were very influenced by the Haitian Revolution, and they say that Haiti's history proves that those of African descent are not destined to be oppressed forever. Remember what I said? Haitian history is what? Race vindication. So they were holding Haiti up to a higher standards, right? But note, between 1838 and 1839, over 200 petitions were sent to Congress to recognize Haiti's independence, because the Europeans realized if they recognize Haiti's independence, then how do you justify slavery in the United States? And so they purposely not recognize Haiti. They said, Haiti, what is Haiti? We don't know what that is. We're not going to do trade with them. We're not going to do anything. And so this brother right here, Charles Ray, said, it is our interest to acknowledge Haitian independence, because he understood that if we could get them to recognize Haiti, they could recognize us as well. You get what I'm saying? All right, Maya Angelou and the Toussaint led over to a grammar school in, where is this at? In Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri. Okay. In St. Louis, Missouri, right? This school is still in existence. It's closed down now, but still in existence. African Americans named that school after who they looked up to. Go see it for yourself. A lot of people think I be reaching. My sister could tell you, my beautiful sister could tell you, almost every summer, I would drive up to her house and stop in Virginia and travel I would drive all up and down, and I would see this. Toussaint Louverture School. You know what I'm saying? In Franklin, Tennessee, they have Toussaint Louverture Cemetery, African Americans, right? The inspiration. Go see it for yourself. People always, oh, you lying, you're reaching. Go see it for yourself. I've traveled it. Go see it for yourself. In Pennsylvania, you got Haiti Park, Haiti community. Go see it for yourself. It's there. So when I say Haiti influenced African Americans, you can see the level of influence that I'm talking about. South Dakota, Haiti, right? Also, Louverture High School in Oklahoma, created in 1908, right? And as you can see, it's named after Louverture. And it says the Oklahomians who embrace both the Haitian Revolution and in their curriculum, and Louverture in the meaning of the name of their school, Louverture in the naming of their schools found strength in the shared Black Atlantic history. So they named the school specifically after Louverture, and you can see up there on the date. Excuse me, I got to speed it up a little bit. My apologies. Also, East Orange, New Jersey, Louverture School. You can see it for yourself. Still there to this day. Alexander, Virginia. One of the first Black communities there was called Haiti, right? They also created magazines and things about the Haitian Revolution, so you see the influence. There's also a hospital there to this day called Louverture Hospital, where you had soldiers who went during the American Civil War to be treated. And it was created, inspired by the Haitian Revolution and Haitian revolutionary leaders. Okay, also in New York, you have the Toussaint Club. All right, so we're going to go ahead and, all right, the naming ceremony in West African tradition. Okay, so names are very, very important. One thing we have to realize, naming your child is very, very important because their spirit is supposed to speak to you when you name them. And you're supposed to name them based on what their spirit tells you, right? So a good name creates, my mouth is dry. I apologize, y'all. A good name creates an expectation and an attitude in those who hear it. So when someone, like I have a friend called, I have a buddy named Odayinka, right? His name means something like God is watching, to some sense, right? So Africans understood the importance of naming your child something, right? Africans understood that, so did African Americans. And when you look at African American history, you will always see 2 or 3 things. Either their first name or their middle name will be named after a Haitian revolutionary, Dessalines. This brother right here, Arthur Dessalines Langston, is the great uncle to Langston Hughes, the famous African American writer. So if you look at African American history, always look, and this is what's funny too. What they'll usually do is put a D, because it was very taboo to be connected to Haiti or to be Haitian, because they felt like you were trying to create something or do something. And so African Americans will honor them by naming them their last name or their first name. But you'll always see a D or a T or whatever the case may be, but you got to dig deeper into that. All right? Oliver Toussaint Jackson, he was actually the person who went out to Colorado and founded Colorado, Deerfield, Colorado. Middle name, Toussaint. And the Toussaint Lambert, they actually went with his first name. He created a magazine also, which became a newspaper later, right? Look at this brother. What's his middle name? Boyer. Alexander Boyer, right? Oh, wait, Alexander Boyer? I'm making up names. Boyer was a mulatto who actually was the assassin of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, right? And you see he's named after Boyer, right? And when you go to St. Louis, they have a museum for him because he was very proud of Haitian history. He has a lot of African-American history and things like that, right? And he also spent a year in Haiti. He actually went to Haiti, and he studied in Haiti as well. Okay, and as you can see, this brother just passed, became an ancestor, Allen Toussaint. So you see the connection. You see the connection. All right. Callie, you said I had, what Callie? Got 30 minutes for intermission? 30 minutes? Okay. All right. The cultural and historical connection. All right. This is where most Haitian historians or Haitian scholars miss the mark. When a lot of Haitian historians study Haitian history, the first place they go is to France. It's the first place they go. Why would you go to your oppressors? So one of the things that I did when I started studying is I went to the English. I went to the Spanish because they were on the island too. Why are we running to the people who instead? Of course they're not going to write anything good. Look at this photo. This is what they have in their books. That France freed us. Why would you go to your oppressor? If you're going to learn from oppressor, at least learn from the oppressor who was beefing with your oppressor, and you can learn something, right? So I started studying I started studying Spain, England. They have lots of documents about the Haitian Revolution. Lots of documents. You'll be amazed. They even have our Constitution. They're the only people, in the UK, they're the only people who have our Constitution. We don't even have our Constitution. They have our Constitution. So when I say we got to stop studying from our oppressor's angle, maybe study another oppressor and learn from them, but don't just run to France. And like, if I want to know American history, I'm not necessarily going to dig into what George Washington got to say about America, because he's going to say what he's going to say. I want to hear what France has to say about America during that time period, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There we go. The British Museum. They got a whole section dedicated to the Haitian Revolution. A whole section. Okay, and as you see in the article, they actually wrote in the first Haitian Constitution a part in there for African Americans. In the Haitian Constitution, how many people knew that? That there's a part in the Haitian Constitution written specifically for African Americans. I made it. All right, so we're going to take a quick intermission.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for checking out the vendors and all your support. We're going to welcome back Melanie DeGenie.
Give thanks, give thanks. All my life I had to fight. I had to fight for my liver. I had to fight for my kidneys. I had to fight against a deliberate attack on my mental energy. I had to fight against the poisonous vaccines administered when just a baby. Now the world wants me to think that I'm crazy. Well, maybe I wouldn't be so angry if they kept it real from the beginning. Like, if you eat this seedless shit, it will start killing your organs and arteries, give you cancer, diabetes, and a host of illnesses. When we couple that with pure ignorance, they got us being the participants of our demise disguised as better living. But true living is organic living, so all we're hearing is lies, prompting us to buy the death that they prescribe to our people. Sprinkle a little chemical in the cereal, add some bleach to the rice, eat 20% animal protein to form the mutated gene. Now they've impacted our lineage for life. We at war in an army that shows signs that they lost their fight, forcing the strong to have no choice but vibrate high, who must shine light so the lost can gain sight and ignite the fire dimmed by the plight of our race. Instead of being on the chase after waterfalls we've never seen and giving energy to insignificant things, let's use the light to light the path that brings us back to self, the place where everything begins. We're fighting for an end to toxic living that's killing our chances of survival, the threat of extinction initiating a global revival, the evidence being arrival of our true selves. So we must operate so that tribal thoughts prevail. Unified, connected communities of balanced scales, with power so strong it rids the darkness with light. Globally igniting flames of power ridding the earth to darkness, forcing us to gain sight of our true purpose. Living this life like it's golden and like it's worth it. In its earthly existence to experience the fullness of this human experience. Giving ourselves permission to be ourselves, loud, uninhibited, and free. Expressly living in duality. Ready for war if need be, especially if our spirits are in jeopardy. Staying grounded to Nita's frequency. Giving homage to the gods, goddesses, and deities. Celebrating every connected step of our journey, escaping bondage, freeing our mental capabilities, so we can fulfill the purpose determined before we traveled across this galaxy. We are star beings, here to shine light. That's why in our lives we have no choice but to fight. Give thanks, give thanks. I go by Melanated Glow, and it is an honor and a privilege as always to be amongst you all, to perform for you all, and for you, Brother Hassan. Give thanks.
You can drop that. Everybody got something to eat, got something to drink? I'd like to thank everybody if somebody purchased the book. I've never been in a room where I owe so many people so much money. So if you purchased the book, you helping me out today, because I owe the cameraman, I owe security, but I might not make it out of here if I don't sell these books. I appreciate y'all. All right. This is the part of the lecture y'all might not like. This is the part where it might get ugly. But I just want to retract because I feel like I didn't touch on something as strong as I should have when I said that it's not your eyes that see, but it's your brain, right? And what I mean by that is that we are taught to see certain things, right? And we're taught to not see certain things. For an example, an early surgeon, a practicing surgeon, right, might have a student working under him, case may be. And they're both looking at their patient. But one who's been trained to see certain things, he would see what the practicing surgeon does not see. So you have to tell him, this is the aorta, this is the, I don't know, I'm making up names. So don't, this is the heart, this is the lungs, right? So he's training him to see because to him it just looks like plasma, blood, et cetera, right? The same thing with like, let's say for example, in the Antarctic, you have those native people, Eskimos, who can spot different snowflakes with their bare eyes, right? Because they've been trained to do that since a child, right? And so our brains, under the system of white supremacy, have been trained to see things and not see certain things. And that's why I wanted to make that very, very clear in stating that. You know, another example would be a mechanic. You know, when a mechanic pops the hood, all you see is a whole bunch of grease and parts, but they see something different, and they tell you what you see. And so we've been in this society that's been telling us what to see and what not to see as a people. And so I just wanted to make that clear and go over that. All right, we back. All right, African Americans protecting Haiti. So I talked about how Haiti was an influence to African Americans. Now I'm going to talk about how African Americans have returned that favor to Haiti in particular. So during that time period, you had people like Frederick Douglass, who was asked to do a speech on Haiti. And he went up there and gave a 4-hour speech at the World's Fair. 4 hours talking about Haiti and Haiti's history. You also had marches in New York in the 1920s where they were marching on behalf of the occupation of Haiti. So you had African Americans in New York, right, fighting on behalf of Haiti because they understood if you're trying to destroy these black people here, then you're going to do it to me. And so we must protect the image of Haiti. And you see articles, Garvey will write about Haiti, et cetera, right? You also had his brother, James Weldon, right? He was a part of the NAACP. And he went to travel to Haiti, and he wrote articles about what the occupation was looking like, how American soldiers were treating Haitian people. And because of his writings, it actually put a bad taste in the world view of what America was, right? And so this essentially ended the occupation in Haiti in 1934 from his writings, from him writing about what the American government was doing in Haiti. Okay. You also have the crisis paper where they talked about what was going on in the occupation of Haiti from 1915 to 1934. Again, same scenario. And as you can see here, you got Haitian prisoners who were being captured and being forced to work for free in Haiti on their own land. And African Americans were documenting all that mistreatment. And again, America wanted to keep their liberal image, had to pull out of Haiti, if that makes any sense, because of what African Americans was doing politically with their media. And this is why it's important for us to be connected. Okay, now the first time I heard about Maxine Waters was in 1994, right? A lot of people may not remember, but Maxine Waters is one of the people who was fighting to help in the wet foot, dry foot before it became a thing. She was protesting on behalf of Haitians, like, yo, why are they dying out? Why do y'all have them dying, drowning, when they could just come here, et cetera, et cetera? So Maxine Waters is a sister. Note, you can't change the system working with the system. But she done a lot of good for black people and for Haitian people. But then one would have to ask which one is more important. But it's neither here nor there at the moment. And also you can see she's in Haiti with who? With Aristide. She was the first one on the ground when they began to start the coup in Haiti. So this sister has been very influential to Haitian history and Haitian politics. All right. Also, this sister right here, Barbara Lee of California. When Aristide got ousted in 1991, recently, in 2004, she wrote up a bill and was like, hey, white people, y'all messing with Haiti again? And it's like, no, we're not messing with Haiti. She said, I think y'all messing with Haiti again. So she went ahead and did a research on what was going on in Haiti at the time period. So she put a spotlight on it. So it's important to show how we've been sharing an experience throughout the Atlantic, because it's not one-sided. It's just not Haiti helped everybody. Other people have came in and helped Haiti, and other people have helped the culture as well. Danny Glover. Listen, there needs to be a statue in Haiti for Danny Glover. This brother right here has been a humanitarian for Haiti for the longest. And that's, I don't know why that's not more well known about the things he's been doing in Haiti with, like, you said what now? Well, yeah. This man is on a jet. When Aristide got ousted, Aristide's like, why they kick me out? I don't know why they kicked me out. And he's on the plane with him leaving Haiti. Like, he picked him up. You know what I'm saying? All right, so now it's going to get ugly now. The mulatto problem and the psychological damage from having the mulatto problem. All right, so I'm going to go over all these categories within this chart. This is Nellie Fuller, right? And this is Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, the writer of the ISIS Papers. And in both of their books, they have a chart that talks about the global system of racism and white supremacy. And Nellie Fuller says, if you don't understand racism, how it works, you're not going to understand anything in life. Anything. You're not going to understand. Everything is going to confuse you. Everything in this category is going to confuse you. Economics is going to confuse you. Education is going to confuse you. Entertainment is going to confuse you. Labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. All of these things are going to be confusing. Going to be confusing to you as an African, right? Because racism is about confusion. Just want to clear something up. Note, black people cannot be racism or can't be racist or practice racism because ism is a system in itself. And we don't have a system to be prejudiced toward other people. We are victims of racism, right? We have to understand that when people say, oh, that's racist. No, that's just me looking out for my better interests. Black people need to be more prejudiced, okay? Prejudice is a form of survival. When you prejudge a situation, we have to be more prejudiced. Problem is we're more prejudiced with ourselves than anything. All right, so Dessalines' mistake. Love Dessalines, one of the greatest African leaders we've ever had in history. He beat the French, beat the Spanish, beat the English. Anybody that came up against Dessalines, he whooped them. His biggest mistake is when he tried to make everybody on the island of Haiti under one banner. He tried to make the blacks black, the whites black, and the mulattoes black. And he said, under this constitution, we all gonna be black. And mulattoes, Alexander Pétion and Boyer, was actually his assassins. And then it became illegal to even mention Dessalines' name after his assassination. They made it illegal to even speak about him. These two gentlemen right here that we hold so high in high regard in Haitian culture. All right, and obviously this mulatto, Mr. Boyer, he signed a deal with the French, which caused the whole economical downslide of Haiti, where he said, look, you know, for us to be cool, we'll pay you reparations for winning our slavery. So he ushered in that whole new renaissance of us paying France back reparations. And also that the money was financed, the debt was financed to Citibank. So the Citibank here in the United States, the debt was refinanced back to them through Citibank. So when I say this is a global system, it's a global system. And so he ushered that in. Now, he also was the person who was writing his father, who was a white man, French white man, and asking his French father to recognize him as his son, and he didn't do so. Now let's see what Africans did when it came to fighting against liberation. As I talked about earlier, the Citadel. When King Henry was in power, he was like, I'm not paying them nothing. And guess what? We're going to build a fortress, and if y'all want to fight, we're going to fight. Because I'm not turning my people over to an economical form of slavery. We're going to fight. But the mulatto said, let's just bend to them. Let's just go ahead and deal with it. Now, I'm not attacking this sister. I want to make that very, very clear. This is Naomi Okasaka. Okay, I'm not attacking her. I'm using her as an example, right? As an example, as a public figure, right? She is not a role model for African girls. She is a role model for mixed girls. If you have a white parent, you are mixed. I don't care how much you identify with the culture, how much you talk the slang, you are mixed. Me and Barack Obama are not the same. We have to be honest about that. Psychologically, without saying we don't come from the same lineage, you cannot, how can we say that a mixed race person can be black and they came out of the legs of a white person? That is diminishing our genetic ability or our genetic presence as African people. Me and, we're not the same. Let's just end it there. But not dissing on her, this should be black girls' role models. Black girls, not mixed girls. Now, a while back, and this is so funny how we have short-term memory, a while back she made a statement. And I'm just going to base it because the letters are too small to even try to read. But basically, she made a statement saying, well, every time I win a U.S. title, people want to, pull me to the Japanese side. People want to pull me to the Haitian side. She's like, I'm just a person. And that's the real psychological position of a mixed race person. Because they're in the middle, they can never really take a side, or that side would waver, right? And guess what? She took a lot of backlash from the Haitian community because, Haitians, we have low self-esteem. We have to grab everything that comes from Haiti or even has a little bit of Haiti in it, right? So since she's half and half, they begin to tear her up on Twitter. And then overnight, she became this. Dashiki. Oh, she eating griot on the plane. She in Haiti now. But see, we have a short-term memory. We don't forget what she said earlier about, man, I'm just me. I don't want to be a part of that. But now since she got toe up on social media, now she everything Haitian. Head wrap and everything. This is the mind of the mulatto. I'm going to go wherever seems fit. Okay? Can we go to Japan and see a Haitian flag in Japan? This is a center dedicated. Why? Why? Because we're so thirsty for attention, because we have not learned to accept ourselves. Now, the family photo, right? Let me give this example. If we all were to take a selfie right now, right? What's the first thing y'all would do when y'all look at the selfie? Look for yourself. That's the first thing you would do. Look for yourself. Why are we taking people who don't look like us and making them our spokespeople? We need to create an image that looks that we can see ourselves in everything. White people do it. Everybody else does it. Asians do it. They always look for themselves in something. How are we looking for ourselves in mixed race people? That's a white man, me dropping his pencil. He trying to get me. Okay. Again, we still don't get it. She doesn't represent Haiti. She chooses to play for Japan, and she doesn't even carry her father's last name. Think about that for a second. She won't. What would her playing for Haiti do for the economy, or representing Haiti? What would it do for Haiti? For her to even carry her father's last name, she won't even do it. But we miss that because she'll put up a Haitian flag here and there and say, oh, I love my ancestors. She never said which ancestors, though. She said, I love my ancestors. Could we talk about them Japanese dudes? Okay? This was an article that came out where they was talking about how this Asian artist person portrayed her as more white than anything, because they understand that I'm not going to give my kids something that don't look like them to celebrate. Why would I do that? We're the only people who do that. Representation is very important, very, very important. Okay, and again, tell me when y'all don't see her without that Japanese flag. She's going to have that Haitian flag, but she's going to have that Japanese flag because she's letting you know. She letting you know. A mixed girl cannot be the standard of beauty for African girls or for black girls. It cannot be the standard because we are not the same. And that doesn't mean hate anybody. That doesn't mean dislike anybody. It's just we are not the same. I know my limits, and you should know your limits. All right, 50 years later, it actually got worse, right? They did a doll test, and this was the test that kind of ushered in the integration movement in the 60s. And they asked black children which doll is the prettiest, which doll is the ugliest, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, we know which doll the children picked. They went with the more lighter doll. They did a test recently, and it was damn near the same. The results was damn near the same, where we still have young black children who view lightness more prettier, more beautiful, more important than black. What are we creating for our children? This young sister is a social worker. She's a Haitian girl. She realized, coming from the Haitian culture, that a lot of folks don't really want to, the secret in our community is skin bleaching, not wanting to wear our natural hair, et cetera, et cetera. So she went out to make a doll that represented us as African Haitian people, right? And them sisters were chocolate. I don't even know why they destroyed themselves like that. But that's the secret in the community. Now, self-hatred starts on the inside and shows on the outside. Lalila Africa teaches us that all your illnesses start on the inside and shows on the outside, whether it be blemishes, whether it be, just your eye color change, be more red. Everything starts on the inside because it's an internal problem. When Haiti had a form of negritude, meaning negritude is like a form of blackness, black acceptance, Africanness, right? Look at Haiti. Beautiful, right? Look at Haiti now. Self-hatred starts on the inside and shows on the outside. Everything you feel about yourself is going to show. I'm going to drop paper all over. I don't care. It's a reflection. right? So we have to learn to rebuild our self-esteem. We have to learn to be proud. You can see it when you go to certain neighborhoods, how people drop trash and pee everywhere, and it's self-hatred starts on the inside, reflects on the outside. Okay? I tell you one thing. A lot of people talk about Papa Doc. We better be thankful for Papa Doc, because during the 60s, there was a Japanese community that was invading Haiti. And they were coming business owners in Haiti. I'm talking about laundromats, restaurants, Chinese restaurant in Haiti? Like, come on. They were doing their thing. Papa Doc said, hey, my friend, too much. I don't like. Too much. And he gave him the peace sign. You got to go. He's like, you got to go. You got to get out of here. And one thing I want to note is that one of the ways that they were able to get in is by marrying into the Haitian families. I keep telling, we don't understand that. We think, oh, no. That was one of the ways that they got into the community, marrying into the family. They still do that to this day. You can't marry into a witch right family. Why can't they marry into ours? Papa Doc said, no, too much. Ale, get out of here. Y'all got to go. And he kicked them out. You better be thankful for him. A lot of people don't know what this man did. Of course, he committed atrocities, but that's what power is about, conserving yourself. If it wasn't for him, Haiti would have been went down the tube. Okay? And it's happening again, because we don't know our history. The Chinese are back, heavy, hard. They're not playing in the Caribbean. They want you. And we toasting with them. We're going to learn. A few years ago, a fake rice epidemic came out. Where do you think we got it from? Taiwan. And look, we got you on camera. We see like you on camera passing the rice. This rice is giving people cancer, diabetes, but we think we got friends. Africans have no friends. Okay? They building communities in Haiti. Africans have no friends. They don't do anything for free. They're not doing it because they like you. They're not doing it because they want to be friends. If we live in a capitalistic system, we have to understand that it's based off of capitalizing off somebody else, of taking advantage of somebody else. And since we don't see color, we can't see these Chinese people coming in here taking advantage of us. Now, we're going to talk some real ugly stuff now. Now, it's funny that white people could go to Haiti, Asian people go to Haiti. I go to Haiti, I got to worry about getting kidnapped. They got all the money, why don't you take them? Why don't you take the Chinese people? Go throw their ass in the van. Why you coming? I ain't got no money. You going to call my mom, she going to take, keep them. What I'm going to do? I can't afford that. These people walking around here, take them. Let me not stand on camera, but yeah, take them. So air pollution in Haiti. When I went to Haiti, man, it's nothing but motorbikes up and down the street. Where do we get it from? The Asians. They don't even want them craps no more. They drop them in Haiti. You want to be honest again for a second? When Trump called Haiti a shithole, what is a shithole? Well, you could just drop something there. If we really want to be honest, I know that might hurt some people's feelings, but we're going to be honest up here. If you could just drop anything in our country and we don't have no say-so, what is that? That's a shithole. We got to be honest about this, right? And now Haiti got high levels of air pollution. In a few years, we're not even going to be able to breathe because we already burn the trash. All right? Mulatto power on a black face. One of the things I want to note is that anytime you see that black and red flag flying, Africans are in control of that country. Whenever you see that blue and red, mulattoes are in charge of that country. You better believe that. Anytime you see that. When it's black and red, Africans are running it. The other way around is mulattoes running it. She's a mulatto. This is Baby Doc's son. She's a mulatto. Man, this lady was taking so much money out of Haiti. Man, this lady stole so much money out of Haiti. He was a Zopabe that got a check, and you know what I'm saying, he was in love with a light-skinned, baddie, and she took advantage. This lady would throw the most extravagant parties while 95% of the poor black African population was starving. But she was a mulatto. We don't see that. And the crazy thing about it is, when did the flag get changed back from black and red to red and blue? With him. It's a black face, but she was in charge. She even ousted the mama. Told the mama, shut up, I'm running this country. I got this now. And then they found her in Dominican Republic in 1990 with another dude when she was in Dominican Republic, and she divorced him. So she wasn't even with the man no more. She done took all the money, ran off to New York, ran off to France, ran off everywhere. And the 95% of black people was just left, like that. All right, interracial dating will end racism. That is a lie. We really have to understand it right now. Right now, it's real bad in Brazil. There is a genocide of the African population in Brazil by mixed race people. Does anybody know this? There's a genocide right now where they are killing black people. This sister was just executed for speaking out against what's going on in Brazil. Okay? The psychology behind this photo. This photo is called The Redemption of Ham, or Ham's Redemption, right? And as you can see, it's an African woman. She has a hand up. She's praying. And as you see, her biracial daughter had a baby with the white man. And you know what she's saying? You know what she's praying for? Thank God this black blood has washed out of my body, out of our family. Thank God this black blood has been washed. That's her baby. This is the African woman. That's her mixed race daughter. That's her husband, and that's the white child. And she's saying, thank God this black blood has been washed out of my family. This is a famous painting in Brazil. It's called Ham's Redemption, after the Bible story. But we again, genocide in Brazil right now, where African people are being killed by mixed race people. If we're not careful, anywhere African people are, we're going to be a prime example of that as well. Okay? The hey big head in the 1800s. You know that text you get, hey big head, how you doing? When you want to get back. Dominican Republic is the only country to call back their colonizers and say, can y'all come back and colonize us? Because we miss y'all. Hey big head. You know what I'm saying? Like, come back. This is a fact. We got to understand this. That's why the book is called what? The Mulatto Republic. We got to understand how it's a sickness. It's a true sickness. And we see what Sammy Sosa did to himself. And one thing I know for sure is you try to wake somebody up that's sleeping, they're going to kill you. Even if you're waking up for a good reason, they're going to try to kill you. That's why we got security here. Because I already know. I mean, come on. You see how, and not all Dominicans, because there are some black brothers who's strong or whatever the case may be, but we see how the mulattoes act over there. When the last time you seen somebody lynched in color? It's a Haitian man they lynched in Dominican Republic. And this happens all the time. This happens all the time. I would never spend $1 in Dominican Republic. This happened recently, November 9th. Biracial baseball player who hated that he was black killed his father and his best friend. Because he hated his father. His father was black, he hated him. Think about if we messed up in the head and we doing this to ourselves as black people, how you feel being half and half? If we as a full black person feel a certain way about ourselves, where we hate ourselves, we'll bleach ourselves and we'll do these disgusting things to our body, how you think somebody who got a white daddy and a white mama, they looking at you like, I could have been white if it wasn't for you. I was almost white, and you had to come around with your Negro genes. Can LeBron James play for the Lakers and the Cavaliers at the same time? That was the question. Can he play? So how can we ask a biracial person to play on either side? Serious question. You can't play on both teams. It's one or the other. And to be honest with you, we need some black people not even play on our team. Some black people got to get off the team. Okay, now, the real capital of Haiti is Cap Haitian. Don't let nobody tell you nothing different. It is Cap Haitian. That is the capital of Haiti, okay? Why was it changed? It was changed because the mulattoes end up coming to power, right? After they killed Henry Christophe, right? And you ask any Haitian where they're from, what are they going to tell you? Port-au-Prince. Nowhere else in the world we're going to be from but Port-au-Prince. Anybody else? Port-au-Prince. That's all we know, right? And why is it? It's because that image. I'm going to get into that in a second. All right. 4 reasons why Cap Haitian is the capital. Although this is in Port-au-Prince. This is in Port-au-Prince. The Constitution was signed in Cap Haitian. The Haitian Constitution was written in Cap Haitian. The Battle of Vertières took place in Cap Haitian, which was the battle that won Haiti's independence. The Palace Sans-Souci is in Cap Haitians, and the Citadel is in Cap Haitian. Right? I know my Creole bad. I know. Sans-Souci. So All of these are in the capital, right? Where you sign your constitution at is the capital. They changed it. Now, my sister Bina, who helped me do my book, this is her brother's birth certificate, right? And he's deceased now. He's an ancestor. And on the birth certificate, she provided for me with this birth certificate. On the birth certificate, it says peasant. Anybody born outside of Port-au-Prince, they will put on your birth certificate peasant. This brother's not a peasant. My grandma's not a peasant. She's not a peasant. Any Haitian born, but this is because the mulattoes were in charge, they begin to say that, oh, well, you're not a mulatto, you're not from Port-au-Prince, so you're a peasant. And this created a stigma in Haiti. This is why everybody always wants to be from Port-au-Prince, because we don't want the idea of being a peasant. And it wasn't until Aristide came in 95 where he changed that, because it was considered to be a mark of shame if you was not born in Port-au-Prince, if you weren't born in the capital, which the mulattoes had changed. So from 1804 to 1995, they wrote on people's birth certificate peasant. My grandma ain't no peasant. So you fooled me once. How many times has the White House been destroyed or attacked? Maybe once, twice, maybe once, twice. Okay. How many times do you think the Haitian palace has been attacked or destroyed? One, during this brother's reign right here. Two, when an explosion went off, they thought it was a bomb that may have been detonated by the United States government to kind of overthrow, what was going on, because Haiti has so many political situations going on, and the United States was in the back just poking, and they were doing a whole bunch of things to try to bring down Haiti in the eyes of the world. And so a bomb went off and blew the second palace up in 1912 with this brother in it, with this president brother right here. Okay, so that's twice. Okay, and this was actually felt around the world, because again, remember, Haiti was an example for African black people. So when he died in this bomb, which I think it was from the United States, when he died in this bomb, people in Zaire, which is Congo, people in France, black people obviously, they were torn about what happened. Okay, funny story. Do you know the real story about Titanic is about this brother? He's actually the nephew of the president. The real story about Titanic is about him. Remember when Jack died at the end? He was the only black person on the Titanic, and they wouldn't let him get on the boat. And he had his white wife and mulatto kids, and he's the real Jack. And she made it to freedom. She made it to France, and he drowned and died in the water. That's a real story. Okay. All right, again, with Sam Vilborn, again, it was destroyed or partially destroyed. They attacked it. Some mulattoes drug him out of the palace, ripped his body apart, and then obviously began to attack the palace. And this is actually what caused the United States to come in and do an occupation on Haiti after him being taken down. Excuse me. Okay, fourth time. That's 4 times. That's 4 times. So what is the ancestors telling us? That ain't where the capital at. That ain't where the palace should be at. Because that's not where we put it at. That's where mulattoes put it at. We need to take it back to the north. Take it back to the north and put it where it need to be at. Come on. 7.0 earthquake? They said we going, okay, y'all ain't listening? Now we really gonna destroy it now. All right. All right. The power of memes. All right. So this brother is Wade Nobles. He wrote a book called The Island of Memes, Haiti's Unfinished Revolution. And so basically what he talks about in the meme is how an image can determine or dictate your behavior. It's a meme, right? We see memes all the time online where we be like, in the kids in the room, where we be like, Negroes be like, BITCHs be like, and then that determines your behavior. Yeah, we do be like that. We do be like that. A meme is very, very powerful. Jesus Christ is a meme. When we put him up in our houses and we see how our parents act, when we pray to this, right? Why was the Haitian Revolution successful? He says that the Haitian Revolution was successful because that's the first time where Africa said, Duddy Bookman, his prayer, he says, get rid of your white God. Your white God is about sin. Your white God is about destruction. You are African people. Get back to what you know. Get rid of that white God. That's a meme. Memes are very, very powerful. Very, very powerful because they convey certain beliefs, and then you start believing in them. One of the things I always say, which one came first, the behavior or the stereotype? Right? Which one came first, the behavior or the stereotype? Because the way we act today, we didn't act in Africa. So which means that they stereotyped us, and then we start acting that way. Okay? Also, memes. Creating reality through memes. Perception is not reality, but perception can become someone's reality. Everybody got that? Perception is not reality, but someone's perception of you can become your reality. Trayvon Martin, he wasn't a thug, but Zimmerman perceived him to be a thug, and then his perception became Trayvon's reality, and he got killed. You see what I'm saying? What I'm saying about the memes? They transfer, right? And so you see all the disgusting memes about about Haiti, and then as you know, they always say, well, that's just how he is, right? So you always got to ask yourself, which one came first, the stereotype or the behavior? They stereotype us, and then we act this way, okay? Also, throughout history, the history of degraded black memes, right? In Haiti, this is what they would in France and England and other places, this is what they would put in the magazines about us. Look at this. Diminishing us to the world. But this is what we really were, royalty. We were really royalty. And it's the same thing in African-American culture. Oh, we laugh all the time. We joke. We ignorant. We got big mouths. We always fight eating watermelon. Where the hell did that stereotype come from? We like watermelon. They stereotype you, and then you act that way. And that's for everything. Also, memes in Haitian voodoo. I tell anybody, if you got Saint Mary or whoever Mary up on your wall, you talking about you practice voodoo, you don't practice voodoo, you a Catholicist, okay? You are a Catholicist. Your God need to be black. I don't even understand how we talk about we practicing an African religion and then we bow down to white people. That makes no sense at all. Remember Bookman's prayer, get rid of your white God. Okay? Now, white folk, I went to a botanica shop today. And let me tell you something, they got more black gods than a little bit. Okay? Spanish people, white people, the ones who do practice voodoo, how the hell they got the black gods and we got the white gods? And we got to be crazy, man. We got to be out of our mind. You go in their house, you got a little black dog there, black dog there. You go to our house, we got Jesus, John F. Kennedy. Come on now, we crazy now. We crazy now. The media can be used as a form of memes, right? As we can see, the palace is destroyed. When the United States came, why they did all this for? What's the show? Ain't nobody in there. But we're going to photograph it, put it in a magazine, show it around the world. It's a meme. It's going to change people's behaviors, their thinking. This brother right here, they made a cartoon on the Time magazine. They made a cartoon on Time magazine because media dictates your behavior. What you think, what you see. This brother was alive. They could have used a real photo. But it's easy to digest if it's a cartoon because it doesn't seem real. Now look. But every one of theirs is real. All of us is cartoons. See what I'm saying? With memes, you don't even see it. When OJ was going to trial, they actually on Time magazine, they darkened OJ's image on that magazine. Go back and look at it. To make him look more devious, to more mischievous. This is what they do with us, man. All their devils are real pictures, but we get cartoons. Because again, white people, their image of themselves is based off of our degradation. So for them to see a black man prominent, it doesn't sit well with their conscience. It's like, what? A black man is running the country and he doesn't have white people helping. What's going on? It messes with their cognitive dissonance. When I speak to white people, I can literally see when their cognitive dissonance is going to kick in. Because I don't speak the way other black people speak. I don't carry myself the way other black people carry themselves. I speak very directly to them crackers. I get them what they want. You know what I'm saying? And you can see it on their face, like, they ask you, what school did you go to? Where you from? And they'll say, you're not like every other black person. What they're saying is that you're not what I'm used to. You're not what I'm used to. And it's bothering me that you're not what I'm used to. Because sadly, some of us do fall into the stereotypes. All right, Haitians wake up call. I might speed through this one right quick. All right, so what is a Haitian American? I don't even know what that is. How can you be the oppressor and the oppressed at the same time? Because if we know who's destroying Haiti, it's America. So I don't know what a Haitian American is. I mean, you might as well just call yourself African or Haitian is your culture, but I don't know what a Haitian American is. Like, understand we paying taxes to a government that literally destroys our own homeland. Think about that for a second. We paying tax. It's a monstrosity to even call yourself a Haitian American. We African first, and my culture is Haitian. Okay? My man, Papa Doc, he says, I know Haitian people because I am the Haitian people, right? He know how much we be cooning. He know how we want to go on Instagram and see black girls going in with white people, and we loving it, we sharing it, and we just displaying this grimace. He know how we be cooning for Trump. Look at this. This is sad. What is this? Do you see this? This man run up there and hugging him like that. And we know what it is. So he knew when he said, I'm gonna put my foot on my people's neck, he did it for a reason. See, African people, democracy don't work for us. We need dictatorship. We flourish in a dictatorship. When somebody gonna say, my football, I'm gonna beat you in your head, that's when we work the best. Here's the funny thing about it though. We don't like when a black person do it, but we'll take it from white people. When a black person is a dictator and says, oh, we got to get him out. If a white person's like, oh, well, maybe we should vote about it, or maybe we should, something. We don't like black oppression, but we love some white oppression. But he knew his people. And this is why he did the things he did in Haiti. A lot of people don't understand it. He's like, I'm trying to save y'all, man. But, trying to save a Negro. We are black Frankensteins. This lady right here, Mary Shelley, she wrote the book Frankenstein, right? The influence of that was the Haitian Revolution. I'll show you. In the storyline, they go and dig up a body. They take a body from somewhere. Africans being taken from Africa. They put a new brain in the Frankenstein. Frankenstein begins to realize, wait a minute, I don't like what you're doing, you playing with me, I'm not right with this. Fight back. Haitian Revolution. They did what? They get pitchforks and get a lynch mob and go chase Frankenstein down. And then they lynch Frankenstein in the movie. Haitian Revolution. They took us from Africa. They try to give us a new brain, make us speak French, do this, do that. We begin to fight back. And at the end of the day, you see the oppression that comes with that. She based that story because she was in the age of revolution. But when they do throw things like that, understand you're talking about Haiti. Okay? And as you can see, the lynchings. All right. This is actually the first story play about Frankenstein. What is he? He's a black man. But they changed the green to be more acceptable for society. He was a black man. She knew what she was writing about. 100% what she was writing about. And here's the crazy thing about it, right? Our folk, we go to the movie, we like, man, that was a good-ass movie. What? It was good. I'm like, boy, it was about you. You ain't even know it was about you. King Kong, Planet of the Apes, you don't even know these movies are about you. See, white people understand when they make their movies, they project in their movies. They show into the future or they show their real characteristics in the movie, how they view themselves. They don't make movies just to make movies. Understand, movies are a part of propaganda as well. The movie about you, bruh, you just ain't know it. Woo, this is where I might get ugly at. The good white person has the same agenda as the bad white person, just different methods. 100% different methods. See, the bad cop gonna come in, talk trash, beat you up, rough you up. The good cop gonna come in, give you some soda, give you a cigarette. But at the end of the day, they still gonna lock you up. Regardless, they still gonna put you in jail. 2 photos, same situation. White soldier, gun to the man's stomach, forcing him, doing all type of stuff like that. Do they not have the same agenda? Are they not there to rule Haiti? Are they not there to keep Haiti subjugated? See, we have to understand language. Good is relative to a situation. Good is relative to a person. When we say a good white person, he can be good at the moment, bad tomorrow. Good situation, good for who? It wasn't good for me. Slavery wasn't good for me, but it was good for you. Good is relative to a thing, person, place, or a time. Good changes. Something good for you may not be good for me. So when we say good white person, good when? When is he good? So again, good cop, bad cop, white person, good white person, bad white person, same dang on thing. They just have different ways of doing it. Understand this, when Europeans came into Africa, they didn't come in violently. They came in 1492, and they stayed there and started enslaving us in maybe like 1615, right? That's 200-something years they stayed in Africa before they started even enslaving us. They learned the culture, they learned the ways, they learned the system, and then they started enslaving. So good white people came to Africa and opened the door for bad white people, if you want to put it like that. Again, good being relative to a situation. Article, right? Why gentrification is a good thing. I remember telling so many Haitians, I remember making posts and going out in the streets and talking, hey man, they're gonna take our neighborhood, y'all not paying attention, you don't see what they're doing. No, we must share the culture. We must show people, we must show them this and that. Matter of fact, my homie in the back, I remember we went to a Haitian shop and we was in there talking to the Haitian man. And I'm telling him, yo man, keep these white people out your shop, man. They gonna, man, do you know I went to that shop recently? That man is damn near homeless. Don't even have the shop no more. They done gentrified it, done kicked the man out. We don't understand that. And it's so sad that so many people died in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and these white people could come in, gentrified, and kick us out because we have not realized that race is the only political ideology we need to understand. Race first, okay? Think tanks. White people just didn't gentrify Little Haiti overnight or any black neighborhood. These people sit down 10 years in advance and write down, okay, this is what we're going to do. They knew that these tides in Little Haiti was going to start, in the Miami Beach area was going to start coming. So they said, well, where can we go this close? Little Haiti. We need think tanks. This is why this event is very important, right? Because we all don't see the same. Remember, we see with our brain, not with our eyes. Some of us haven't spent years studying. Some of us have spent years studying. But my position on that, it doesn't matter if you've been doing this for 15 years or 15 minutes. We have to come to the same understanding. And so what I'm saying is that we need more events like this, where we come in and talk political and unapologetic so we can buy certain properties or we could buy certain areas and hold them down and lock them down and pass them down to our children. We have a sister back there, she does hair. We need to put money behind her and get her a studio, get her a place, and then that becomes generational in our community. We need think tanks. These white people are constantly thinking about your future, about your future. We just can't come in here once every month and do this, and you know what I'm saying? Like Dr. Amos Wilson says, when you filled with self-hatred, your mind is reversed. So everything that's supposed to be good for you becomes bad, and everything that's supposed to become bad becomes good. I could call 100 dudes if I got beef. But if I call some brothers to say I'm gonna clean up the community, only 3 or 4 gonna show up. Your mind is reversed. I call you if I got you. I'm coming right now. Boy, I'm gonna get the sticker. We gonna beam, 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 beam. But if I call you to better the community or come to a lecture to do this, you're like, man, I ain't got time for that. Your mind is reversed. Our minds have been reversed because again, how can 10% of the population rule over 90%? Our minds have to be reversed. Okay, racialized population, dislocation, confusion. This what Neely Fuller talks about in his book. Europeans, when they gentrify our communities, they like to do that because it keeps us off balance. They did it to Native Americans, the Trail of Tears. When they come in the community, they move you out because when you're moving from house to house to house to house, you can never get stable. So when you use the community to community, you can never get stable. This is something they do to keep us always off balance. They moved us from Africa to Haiti. Now we're trying to get from Haiti to America. Like they like to keep us moving so we can never stay grounded. This is why generational wealth and generational property passing on is very, very important. All right, the CIA destabilized Haiti. We should all know what the CIA does by now, but they're basically a group that does counterintelligence in other countries, and they actually fund other governments of opposing governments to overthrow a certain government, right? This is what the CIA does. This is why I say we pay taxes to this. We pay taxes to this for the CIA to go destabilize Haiti, okay? One of the largest embassies in the Western Hemisphere is in Haiti. The U.S. Embassy is in Haiti. Let me repeat that again. The largest United States Embassy in the Western Hemisphere is in Haiti. Man, come on, man. But Haiti po, though. Haiti dirt. Haiti ain't got nothing. Okay. This magazine came out in 1994. taking over Haiti. And one of the things that the writer did, he said, wait. He said, wait a minute. He said, you telling me we're going into Haiti to go fight and make them have democracy and stop all the killing with the rebels and stuff like that, right? And so they're like, yeah, that's what we're going over there for. And he said, well, we got genocide in Rwanda. Well, you got millions of Africans being killed. It's like, we want to go to Haiti. Like, but why? You got things taking place all around the world where people are being killed in large scales. Why are you focused on Haiti? That's a question I still want to know. And as you can see, 2004, United States government overthrowing the people, overthrowing the government. Talking too black can get you in trouble sometimes. Where this brother Eris, he said, hey, friends, y'all owe us some money. I don't want to hear if you ain't got it. Y'all owe us some money. And the United States said, oh, you want to talk about reparations? We got to get you high. Matter of fact, they helped pack his stuff. Mete Salah, put this here, put this there. You got to go. And they got him out. And then they put him back in. After they rearranged him to speak the way they wanted him to speak. They put it back in. One thing Baino Bello says, and I love the elder, she says that he should have died. When he went to exile, he should have died. The greatest thing you can be as an African is a martyr. Understand that. The greatest thing you can be is a martyr. This is why you have people like Dylan Roof, who will go into a church, kill 9 black people because he knows his name going to live forever. White people understand that. Arabs understand that. They understand when they blow themselves up, they blow themselves up something bigger than what they are. We don't people say, I want to live through the revolution. I don't want to be the sacrifice. Understand that you are only here for a moment. I'm only up. I could speak up here all day, but there's one thing I'm going to say that somebody going to say, man, that brother said that thing and that thing changed my life, man, because it only took one thing for me to hear it. Understand the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. And as we can see, one of these mulatto generals, Cedrez, who was a CIA informant, who was right hand to Aristide, getting escorted out of Haiti after killing all them African people, and then they sent him to South America with damn near $10 million or something like that. CIA informant, mixed race, escorted out of Haiti. But then the United States government said, well, we're trying to stop it. Don't fall for it. All right, the Haitian version of Dumma Dumma. These 2 brothers were also a part of that, right? They were under Cedrez, working for him. And this, remember what I told you I said about the black and red flag and the blue and red flag, right? This brother right here. This Negro. Anyway, this brother right here. Where he at? Where he at? He right behind the new president. And I might not be able to go to Haiti after I say this, but he right behind the new president. So who running Haiti? So who running Haiti? This man killed thousands of Haitian people. How was he next to the president? This brother right here? Where is that? Right there. Jodell. Look him up. And if I'm lying, come beat me up later. No. You come beat me up later if I'm lying. Trust me. I'm damn near blind from all this damn reading I be doing. And as you see newspaper articles, and that's one of the things too, white people have got so comfortable with us being complacent that they'll now write it in the newspaper. They don't even care no more. They will write it in the newspaper because they know at the end of the day, we ain't gonna read it. We ain't gonna care about it. And you see article after article, CIA reportedly taking a role in Haiti. Article after article. Article after article about them dropping drugs in Haiti. If you went to Haiti, maybe in the 1960s, 70s, drugs, what is drugs? What is that? Drugs? We don't know about no drugs. There's a huge drug problem in Haiti now. Huge. Thanks to the CIA. Because they understand they got to keep us off balance. They got to keep us out of our mind. The Freedom of Information Act. We really need to get into that. This is where I get a lot of my documents from. Freedom of Information Act. The funny thing about it is, too, sometimes when they give you the documents, they'll blank stuff out, right? They love to do that. But we know what they'll blank out dates and things like this. I want to show y'all something right quick. So this is a CIA document that they had on Papa Doc in the 60s, right? Look when they said it could be released. Hold on. Y'all see that date? See that date? You know why? Because Haitians ain't think about that no more. They ain't think about that no more. They over it. 2001. They were doing surveillance on him, putting agents around him, creating rebellions in the community in the 60s, and they just released it in 2001. Nobody thought about going back to go look at it, see what they did in Haiti. They did a lot of stuff in Haiti, man. A lot of stuff in Haiti. Okay? FBI is for domestic blacks. CIA is for foreign blacks. Understand, what they do to us here, they're going to do in Jamaica. What they do in Jamaica, they're going to do in Ghana. What they're going to do in South Africa, they're going to do it in Georgia. The only problem with that is we don't study our history globally. We only worry about us. Haiti, Haiti, Haiti. No, first, look at what they're doing to African Americans. See, if we would have came here with the idea of looking, okay, what have African Americans been through? We would have learned a lot of lessons. But we came here, segregated ourselves, Haiti, 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 and then we fell right into the same trap. Gang, 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 our youth going to jail, we all in prison, we all getting killed. Little Haiti became a war zone because we didn't understand the trap. We got on our African level of superiority, felt like we was better. I'm Haitian, I'm Haitian. What are you talking about? And we fell right into the trap as African Americans. Right into the trap. Hold on, what I got going on? Let me fix this right quick. The photo says it all. I'm sorry, cameraman, I know I'm running around a little bit. The photo says it all. Who running Haiti? He bearing the cross. What cross is he bearing? United States, Canada, and France. Again, they let you know they fly a flag in our country. They don't care. We here. What y'all gonna do? Rochambeau's battalion returns after 200 years. Rochambeau was a general who was fighting with Dessalines. Eventually, he ended up losing, just to make a long story short, and he ended up getting exiled, kicked out of the country. Do you know, in 2004, the French government, when Aristide was being exiled, came back into Haiti, and the main unit that they had was called the Rochambeau Battalion. 200 effing years later, these people came, they not gonna forget it. They not gonna forget it, but we gonna forget it. We gonna think that was so old ago, that was so long. They still thinking about it. They still love it. We gonna ride through with our French flag, yeah, stupid Haitian, we back. Now we got bigger guns, yeah. 200 years later, to the day they came back to Haiti. To the day. Why is it doing that? All right, black on black violence, huh? What are armed white men with rifles, pistols, and drones doing in Haiti? That was 2019. Look at this. Haitian patch on, blackface on his face, okay? Guns, white man with a mask on. Once he put a mask down, you can't see his face no more. When we hear about cops, Haitian cops shooting Haitian citizens, you really think that's Haitian people, or you think that these mercenaries being sent to the United States? How do you go into somebody else's country with a whole bunch of guns, a whole bunch of weapons? How do you even get through TSA with all that? They stopped me for lotion. How did you get into a country with that? Why is it doing that? What did I do? All right, who's dropping plane loads of illegal weapons in Haiti and why? Planes just dropping. Bloop. There go some guns. Okay. I'm talking about, I seen a video one time that was so disturbing. It was so disturbing. I seen these brothers with these ARs. Look, these are new ARs, man. These are $1,500 a piece. These ain't no cheap guns. To be getting dropped off, they still got plastic on them. All my guns used, they got plastic on these, right? I seen a video one time where it was a Haitian group and they were chopping people up, and I was looking around, they had all these guns and stuff, and I said, they ain't got no shoes on. They ain't got no shoes on. But they got all these advanced weapons. Y'all know what's going on. Y'all know what's going on. Chicago, same thing. This gang member came out and said, yo, we be finding guns all around Chicago. Dropped in crates all around Chicago, all throughout the city. And then we don't even ask where they came from, how they got there. We just go gang on each other. It's the same trick they playing on us. Haiti, America, Brazil, it's the same game they playing. We just haven't figured the game out yet. And this is the results of that. This is the results of that. Okay? From April to August, there were 307 deaths in Haiti. That averages out to 2 deaths a day. To 2 deaths a day. We still don't know what's going on. Okay. When I was going to Haiti, I noticed off in the distance, and I forgot who I was sitting to on the plane, but I said, hey, you see that oil rig over there? Like, you can see the oil rigs off the coast of Haiti where they drilling for oil at. But Haiti poor. Haiti don't have nothing. But they over there drilling for oil. They have to keep the people destabilized mentally so they can take advantage of their natural resources, keep us crazy. Again, I pose the question, how can 10% rule over 90%? Unless you crazy. All right, buck breaking in the 20th century through religion, charity. Ooh. So not only in slavery were the women physically assaulted, but the men were also physically assaulted as well. And that was done to mentally break them, to have them submit, because intercourse is not just about intercourse at times. It becomes about dominance. So let's say, for example, the rapist really doesn't want sex. He gets his enjoyment out of dominating you because he could buy it. He could get it from anywhere, but he gets his enjoyment out of seeing you in pain. You get what I'm saying? There's people like that, where people like to get whipped and stuff like that. They like to see people in pain. This is out of European culture. And sometimes we just get sick, we get affected with it. Okay. My gosh. Matter of fact, this is their headline, by the way. What are Christians really doing in Haiti? What are Christians really doing in Haiti? Understand that words come from history and they're a part of our culture. When we use the term missionary in a sexual position, because we use that man on top, woman at the bottom, what does that come from? That comes from white missionaries going into Africa, raping the women. And we use that word to this day. Oh, we was a missionary. Missionaries going into our countries. And we name that. This is how poison we are. We don't even understand the languages that we're using. Again, only soldiers have missions. Only soldiers have missions. He's a missionary. And then he's serving Christ in Haiti through media. Yeah, all right. I got you. All right. Look at him. How is that? Come on. How do we let something like this in our community? You can't tell this man deranged. But because we have been programmed with these memes of whiteness, when they come, we celebrate them. We love them. We in Africa, we do dances. Look at this man. He like Tom and Jerry. Look at this. Look at him. I would have looked at him and said, you can't come over here, sir. Okay. Again. Now, what is the backlash to that? What is the aftermath of missionaries in Haiti? You have a huge, and I'm not knocking nobody, but you have a huge homosexual community popping up in Haiti. Understand when somebody's molested, there's a lot of things that go through your mind as a child. There's a lot of things, I'll get into it, but it goes too far. I don't want to get too deep into it. But there's a lot of things that go to your mind when you molest as a child. Did I like it? Do I like him? It's a lot of psychological things. And now we see a huge gay community popping up in Haiti. It's mostly boys. It's mostly boys. And a lot of these gentlemen, I read the article, a lot of these gentlemen will tell you they were molested by white missionary people. Okay? Again, they're trying to create communities and a refuge for transgender people. Again, this was in 2020, recent stuff. Now, why is this important? Because we come from a legacy of this, of honorable black strong men who wouldn't bend, who wouldn't break, who died laughing at their oppressors. They have to turn us into this. They have to turn us into men who are effeminized, to broken black men. So we went from Jean-Jacques Dessalines to this. And again, that's not knocking anybody, but I'm saying the system of racism, white supremacy, it will create the people that it needs to exist. So what I mean by that is a society creates the people that it needs to exist. So if white racism needs to exist, it must create broken black men, broken black women, broken black people. This is what they're generating. This is what they're generating. All right, girls as young as 11. This is where I say it might get a little touchy. Girls young as 11 were being taken advantage of by European peacekeepers, et cetera, right? Here's an article where it says, Alex, then 15, described giving Children giving peacemakers oral sex in return for soldiers' rations. And then she says they weren't even good rations, she noted. They were just leftovers. We got to understand these people don't come here. Your oppressor can't be your savior. Your oppressor can't be your savior. And then what happens is when our children go through this, they're put back into our communities with no help, with no guidance. They're traumatized. And when we see some of the angers that come out in our community, it's a result of this. It's a result of this. Okay? And again, not studying our history. We didn't study from Hurricane Katrina. Same thing happened to Hurricane Katrina. Women being taken advantage of by these peacekeepers, by these, you know what I'm saying, Europeans. We have to study each other's culture and history because we say, hey, I see that trap coming. You did that before. But since we don't, we keep falling for the same thing. Okay, Haitian mothers claim that the UN was not trying to accept their biracial children and that they were getting the women impregnated. Again, remember, sex is a part of racism. Sorry, it's about dominance. It's about control. And so they were creating all these fatherless children in the country and then dipping. And then the Haitian women dare to take care of these children. And then they look and say, Haiti got the most single mothers in the country and nobody takes care of their kids when they created the problem. No more rape. No more food for sex. That's a disturbing article to look at, but it's the truth. And we have to start looking at our truth to change the truth. A lot of times we want to shy from it. We don't want to say anything about it because we don't rock no boats. God damn it, the boat's being rocked. Your ass is just in the boat. It's being rocked. Understand that people benefit when we don't speak about our situation. People benefit from that. This is why white people play these mind games with us. Okay, and Becky, she not exempt. Becky not exempt. We like to let the white women off. She ain't exempt. In there taking children, trying to take children out of Haiti for organ trafficking. And obviously you see Israel was involved as well in organ trafficking. So again, talking about the problem, the true definition of a victim mentality. The true definition of a victim mentality is not necessarily pointing out your accuser or the person who's victimizing you, but when you blame yourself for the victimization. That's the true definition of a victim mentality. See, white people are going to play with you and say, don't blame us. That's just the victim mentality. No. I'm not blaming. I'm telling you what the problem is, and I'm going to change it. See, they like to play those games with us, right? Understand that, let's say, for example, a woman is assaulted. She will go through a period where she felt like it was her fault. If I wouldn't have went over his house that late, if I wouldn't have had that drink, if I wouldn't have wore that dress, it's my fault. It's never your fault. It's the sick person's fault. We take on the victim mentality and say, well, if we put our pants up and we stop gangbanging and if we stop doing this, it don't matter what you do. It don't matter what you do. They still gonna come and impress you. So we take that victim mentality and saying, well, it's our fault. This sister gets online and notice this video went very viral because they like stuff like this. She gets online and say, Haiti still has slavery. Oh, you know, white people ran with that. Oh, yeah, we're going to put that out there real good. Yeah. Because it assuages their conscience, and then it makes us look negative. And Raza, I'm not pronouncing it right, but Raza is not even a form of slavery. That system is a form of adoption that came out of the Haitian Revolution. When a lot of parents died during the revolution, they took in their children. And it's something that they still practice today. Notice I highlighted the words poor parents send their children to people's houses so they can get a better education, et cetera, right? This is what that system was about. It's not about slavery, but this sister took it, and I'm not bashing her, took it and turned it into something that it really wasn't. Now, I'm not saying that all Haitian people treat the children like their own, whatever the case may be, because we know we got a lot of sick people. But if we're talking about how it formed and how it's still being used, it's it's an orphanage system. The media will have you cheer for your oppressor. So as we know, Brother Malcolm says, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. Look at this sister cheering for the occupation in Haiti. Yes, they're here to save us from the other bad Haitians that's doing stuff, not knowing that they're part of the gig too. They're part of the gig too. All right, this young sister that was just brutally murdered. Now, this might be hard for some people to take, but when I look at this photo, I see two victims. Now, yes, she was brutally murdered by this brother, but I see two victims. A victim of his rage and his anger, and he's the victim of the society that was raised in. Understand, when people kidnap you in Haiti, they're not kidnapping you for no reason. They kidnap you for money because they're hungry. See, the problem with us is that we keep trying to solve the symptoms and not the cure. I mean, we keep trying to fix the symptoms and not the illness. And so we talk about racism in these elusive ways like, well, we need to get economics together. We need to get this together. We need to get that together. We need to destroy this bitch all the way around. If not, we're going to keep having this sickness. We're going to keep having, it's going to be another one of him not too long ago. He's going to come again. So it's two victims up here, one of his rage and him being a victim of his society, being a product of his society. We got to understand cause and effect. Cause and effect is very important, but these are things that they don't teach us because they don't like to have us think abstractly. They like to make us think one way. RIP to that sister, man. Beautiful sister. All right, same oppression, different masters. So this is a photo from the occupation of Haiti. Again, remember I said they was enslaving Africans, making us work on chain gangs. See, we think that was just in America. We think, oh, just Americans did. No, they came to Haiti and said, y'all gonna work, y'all gonna dig these ditches, y'all, we gonna take y'all. Matter of fact, the United States took about $5 million in gold out of Haiti during the occupation. And that was the money that restarted the stock exchange. Look it up. That was the money they took out of Haiti that refunded the stock exchange. Because at that time, they were going through what in that time period? From 1950 to 1934. That money they took out of Haiti rejuvenated the system. All right. Black is black, the system of white supremacy. They treat us different when it benefits them. They treat Haitians different when they could pin us against African Americans. They treat African Americans different when they could pit us against Bahamians. They do that. We're going to give you a little bit of advantages. We have a movement now called ADOS, right? They're going to do that with us to play the pawn game, to put us against each other. They're going to treat us different, but we are the same. And sometimes the sad part about it is we actually believe that we're different. That's the messed up part about it. We believe in a Haitian superiority, or we better than them, or we got this and we got that. Okay. Black Lives Matter from Haiti to the Bay. People know what's going on. They got to be Urugu, but it's okay. But people know what's going on. They know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. Okay. So Baltimore from Haiti, Black Fist. So as I go through this, I'm going to ask y'all to say these people's names. This brother's actually still alive, Amla Luima. He was the brother in New York that the New York City police stuck a plunger up his rectum and destroyed all his internal organs to where he can't even poop anymore. He has to poop out of a bag. Again, when we think we different, we end up in situations like this. This brother didn't deserve that, but we have to understand it's attack. So we're going to say this brother's name. We're going to say this brother's name as well. He was shot by off-duty or undercover police officers. We're going to say his name as well. See, because cops killing blacks is not just a black American thing. Black is black until your body hit the ground. And then they're going to flip your ID and say, oh, okay. Pierre, huh? Negro. So we're going to say his name. And his son made a statement. His son said they didn't have to shoot him. But I reassure you, they did. Because that's how the system works. That's how it works for them. I'm going to say this brother's name. Say his brother's name as well. And I actually met this brother, too. He played for, I forgot what football team he played for. College football player. Got a flat tire up there in Gainesville. Went to go knock on the white person's door, blew his brains out. Then they asked him if he was Haitian. Then they asked me if he was Jamaican. We're going to say that brother's name, too, as well. And I just want to say that because I want us to understand that we, in the system, we all on the same level. No matter if they come give you a little doggy treats today, they're going to take it back tomorrow. We all on that system. And as you can see, this painting for the brother Floyd in Haiti, because that's a bond that's unbroken. Now, you got some coon Haitians, but you got some Haitians and some riders. You got some Haitians like, man, I don't like them white folk. They know what's going on. But they never gonna elevate those Haitians. They always gonna elevate the ones who bend to what they want. And so as you see, that bond is still unbroken. Even in Haiti, they're making murals about what's going on because that's that transatlantic history. We connected. Okay, and then as you see, Haitians joining the Black Lives Matter movement in New York and Boston, other places like that. Because we all ain't coons. But we got a lot though, but we all ain't coons. Okay, health workers explain why they're joining Black Lives Matter protests. A lot of these Black Lives Matter protests, go there and you will see a lot of Haitian flags. You will see a lot of Haitian flags because we understand what it is. We understand, for the most part, most of us understand that we are under attack. Okay, this was recently as well. Homeowner called the cops on a Haitian woman claiming she was looking for open garages, and that went viral. Okay, the youth end up fighting for our mistakes. Our children end up fighting for our mistakes. Nobody needs to come after me. Nobody needs to come up after me and explain this. I shouldn't have to come after John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, and all these other brothers, Dr. Amos Wilson. There should be no more. We should understand what's going on, what's taking place. Our children end up paying for our mistakes. The civil rights, we end up losing all the black businesses in the United States. We paying for that mistake. We can't be out here cooning because our children are going to pay for it. And I'd be damned if I let my children pay for it. We got to be unapologetic about this. I'm not saying go around slap white people and do this and do that, but we have to draw that line in the sand and don't straddle no fences. Today, my sister woke up and gave me an affirmation. She said, I don't straddle no fences, and I can't remember it now, but we need to stop straddling fences, man, and know what we under attack, whether it be physically, spiritually, through economics, we under attack. Our children going to pay for this if we don't understand this. They're going to be out in the street throwing rocks at the police or in Haiti fighting the police if we don't get this in this generation. Or there might not be the generation after this. Who knows? Corona coming around, Trump and all, I don't even know. When they say on the news, well, they're burning their own communities. One thing that I think is that we internalize that it's not our community because we don't own it. We don't own the gas stations. We don't own the stores. We don't own none of the things that operate in the community. So we burn it down because we don't own it. Same thing goes for Haiti. We ain't controlling the natural resources, so of course we resort to that. If we don't own it, we burn it down. All right. The public media attack on Haiti and germ warfare, connecting the dots. I'm going to connect the dots for y'all for a second. So in I think this was 1981, they came out with the article, and right up here it says, Haiti, a land overwhelmed by AIDS. Remember we talked about the memes, about setting the tone for something. When you see something, this is all in the articles. So they use Haiti as the face of AIDS in the 80s and the 90s. We actually just getting out of that stigma. We're really just breaking out of that. Oh, Haitians. As a matter of fact, Netflix came out with a series recently and said that Haitians created AIDS. So we still fighting that stigma. Now, context. There was a hurricane that took place 1963, right? Damn near destroyed Haiti. It set over Haiti for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 days, just spinning. Damn near destroyed Haiti, right? Remember, Papa Doc was the president at that time. Give me some context behind this. Put in the next photo into context. In the 1960s, this is how the United States government was treating blacks in America. When that hurricane happened, right? Who was the first on the ground to give out vaccines in Haiti? The United States government. If you're treating your blacks in America like this, why would you jump over them to now go to Haiti to administer vaccines and help the people after a major earthquake? Oh, yeah, and Tuskegee was going on at the same time, too. Tuskegee was going on from 1932 to 1972. And coincidentally, after those situations, guess what? AIDS start hitting the black community. Oh, get that vaccine shot if you want. You're gonna be Harlem shaking all over the place. Go ahead and get it if you want. And look at this. Remember I said, they missionaries. Poor Haitian lady. So we put it into context, right? This is an article from 1961. I collect all these articles. I like to dig deep. I do the archives. I get the artifacts because I want to know. And I want that trail, right? This is what the doctor said. He was a doctor that lived, I think, in Arizona. He went to Haiti, decided he wanted. He said, we saw how 20th century medicine has come to a people who lived from generations without doctors. Now, when you read that, it sounds very simple, right? But we have to learn to read with context. If we live generations without doctors, you got to read it in context. If not, you're just going to. See, we think reading is the key. No. Reading, you got to know what you're reading or you're going to miss over it. What the hell we need y'all for? We've been living. Look at this poor girl. See, children know. Children know. They know. I don't like, Yorugu. Ghost. I don't like that ghost. Energy not right. And this is all in the 60s now. And the first AIDS was what, 79 or something? So we see that. Article, New York Times article. Former nun got AIDS in Haiti. First of all, nuns ain't supposed to be having sex. like what? What you were doing in Haiti? Okay. Next slide. So when we use the term guinea pig, we got to understand it comes from Guinea. When they say we're going to do a guinea pig, which is an experiment, when these Europeans were going to Africa, they were doing all type of experiments on us. We were the first guinea pigs. This is why we use that term, and that's why it's good to understand language. And you got to understand the history of the language. Because when you understand the history of the language, you understand how words like missionary, where it came from, or where words like guinea pig come from. And we still use that word to this day. You don't understand germ warfare. These are articles of white men going around giving black women AIDS. I ain't playing with y'all today. I'm giving y'all the truth. This man is said to have affected over 400 girls. 400 girls. He said he allegedly gave her marijuana and alcohol. Deputies say she later found out he had AIDS. Keep swirling. See what you're going to find out. In European culture, they got something called bug chasers. Well, these are Europeans who go out and get HIV positive. They have sex with people to get HIV positive to go pass it to other people. Don't believe me? Look it up. Don't believe me? Look it up. So when we talk about white people will do anything to white people off the planet, you ain't dying fast enough. You ain't dying fast enough. Keep swirling. Now, bonus fact, something that I learned from all this information is that after colonialism, the Congo, what we call the Congo now, was coming out of their situation. And so they didn't really know how to run a government. Haitians made up the largest population in the Congo and West Africa of educated people who went to Africa and helped form the government. And helped form the government in Africa after they came out of colonization. And as you can see, we teaching, we educating the African people. When I say Pan-Africanism started in Haiti, I mean that. And we still very Pan-African. As you can see, these are the first photos of the people who made it there, educating the people in Africa, in the Congo, and et cetera. Helped them set up printing presses and show them things, and you know what I'm saying, things like that. Because when the Europeans began to leave Africa, they was destroying everything. It was like, if we got to leave, we taking this too. We taking all this, and we bringing up the railroads, we breaking up the tracks. This is why when Africans say, well, why Africa look the way it looked? Do you understand how many wars Africa has been through? Do you know what Europeans have done to Africa? They still fight wars to this day. So we sit here in the West and we say, oh, but look at Africa. Africa is very war-torn by the Europeans. They have been fighting wars for damn near 1,500 years. Got to put it in context. And as you can see, more photos from, us educating and teaching over there in the Congo. All right. We need an African-centered education, specifically an African-centered revolution, right? We need to retrain our minds, right? The miseducation of the Haitian. Why is it that 80% of primary schools in Haiti ran by nonprofits or religious institutions? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. These people are not going to educate our children. They're going to turn us into robots. They're going to turn us into self-hating Negroes. 80% of the schools are ran by white missionaries and religious institutions. That makes no sense. So we need a educational revolution. There was a study done in 2012, and they asked people in the Western Hemisphere how they feel about the United States. Do you know that Haiti ranked the highest in positive images of the United States? The highest rating in any survey country in the United States. 79% of Haitians approve of United States leadership. 79%. In 2012, after all we've been through, you still have 79% of Haitians saying, yeah, we want United States to come over here. 79%? Only 18% disapprove it, and 3% were uncertain because they ain't get the newspaper yet. All right. The need to block forever the march of blacks in the world. Who said that? Napoleon. That's what they need to do. Block us forever. Because you can't have this. You can't have an example of Africans living and thriving and doing things on their own. Not here, not anywhere in the world. Even African Americans, I don't care how much money you got. If you still bend into white men, they still have power over you. And so Papa Doc said, it is the destiny of the people of Haiti to suffer. And what did he mean by that? Because we were the first. We set the bar high. And so in the system of white supremacy, they have to destroy Haitian people, Haitian culture, through voodoo, through demonizing voodoo. They have to destroy everything it means to be Haitian, because to be Haitian is to be African and to love Africa. Because whether we want to admit it or not, Haiti is the most Africanist Caribbean island in the Western Hemisphere. We're very African. And so they have to diminish that and show you this and turn Haiti into this. Because again, we must stop the march of blacks. And I could tell you every white man subconsciously or consciously feels the way that Napoleon felt to this day. Believe it or not. David Walker said we was going to talk about him. So he says, Haiti, and this is in his book, David Walker's Appeal. He says, Haiti, the glory of the blacks and terror of the tyrants. He said, I hope that she may keep peace within her borders, because Haiti was going through like a sort of a civil war, the mulattoes versus the blacks, right? He said, I hope that she may keep peace within her borders, keeping a strict lookout for tyrants. For if they get the least chance to injure her, they will avail themselves of it. Which means that if you let these crackers get an inch, they're going to destroy you. This man wrote this in the 1800s. David Walker. He's seen it. He's seen it. He said Haiti is the glory of the blacks. Did I touch on everything? Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war? And that means we at war. Whether it be physical or not, that means we at war. Because all of these things, from the mulatto problem, from the religion, all these things are designed to control you and manipulate you. We at war. Strap your boots up. Some simple basic solutions to the warfare that we're in, right? Boycott anything we don't produce. If we don't produce it, don't rock it. I buy a lot of clothing from Haitian people, from African people, supporting them. Think about this for a second. Every year we have a carnival from Boston to New York to Miami. And in that carnival, there's thousands of Haitian flags. And when you flip the flag over, it says made in China. Think about if we start producing flags in Haiti, what that'll do for the economy. Think about if we start producing the costumes that we wear to these carnivals in the United States, what that would do for the economy. If you don't make it, don't rock it. We are the only people who don't even make our own drawers, our own socks. Seek dual citizenship by land, focus on STEM, which this school is focusing on, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? Okay, educate our own people on our own history and our current condition, right? Translate a lot of our pro-black books and movies, because we're so intelligent here in the West because we got all the information. We got all the information over here. There's a library almost every damn corner. And I want to say something about that, because Dr. Amos Wilson says You can put a library on every corner, but once you induce the people to not care about reading, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But we could say here in the West, we got the Dr. Francis Cress Welsings. We got the Dr. Sabies, which he's Haitian, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. We have all these scholars here in the West. And this is why when I talk to brothers in the West and they say, oh, but y'all coons in the Caribbean, y'all coons in Africa. I'm like, but y'all got all the literature over here. Y'all been writing for thousands of years. Like, we don't have that. So we have to begin to translate the hidden colors and all these other documentaries so our people in other languages can understand, especially in South America where they speak Portuguese, etc. Study guerrilla warfare. Europeans got guerrilla warfare from us. The term camouflage is a West African word, which means to blend in. To blend in. In Jamaica, they would put themselves in leaves, Nanny of the Maroons, and they would camouflage and attack the British. One day I'm going to do a lecture on how revolutions in the Caribbean. And I'm going to break all that down. But we created guerrilla warfare because prior to that, Europeans would fight like this. Boom. Boom. Africans is like, yeah, we ain't doing that. So you're telling me I'm going to stand there and wait till you shoot me? Hell no, give me this machete. So we created guerrilla warfare. This is why they have these military schools where they study military history. They study their military history. Where did we go wrong doing that? Okay, let's do that. Like, they study this. Can't think of the name, but it's military history that they study. All right? Plant trees in Haiti and open up recycling centers. We definitely got to plant some more trees in Haiti because, again, oxygen. And then getting back to nature. Foreign exchange students. We definitely got to get into that program, getting Africans here from different countries and sharing and educating and things like that. Teach other Africans about your culture and history, which means like for example, my sister first came down from Philly a few months ago. The first thing I said is, I want to take you to go get some Haitian food. It's the first thing I told my sister. I want to introduce you to my culture. We black, but I want to bring you into my culture. I want to know about Jamaican culture. I want to know about Bahamian culture. That's something that we have to do because we quick to give it to the crackers. Quick to give it to the crackers. That's the first thing we want to do. Let me show you how we great people. Show another black person. Show another black person about roots and voodoo and introduce them to something. Where was I? All right, study an African-centered psychology. And lastly, please stay on code. And being on code means, it can mean a lot of things, but basically it means put black first in everything you do. Put black first in everything you do. And I thank y'all for your time.
Africa, unite.